What's up guys, this is your favorite fanfic YouTuber, the Fanfic Majesty, and welcome to another amazing video. You can follow me on Patreon for exclusive stories. 4TS Chapter 82 The Vanity Disappears, The Pinnacle Keto. Advertisement The sound of gold and iron intertwined, echoing in the barren land. Broken Ching's eyes closed tightly, but the expected slash did not fall on him. Watch the battle. Shimo's voice reached his ears, and Broken B raised his head blankly, just to meet Shimo's gaze. The enemy's strength is too strong for you to deal with. Broken B's cheeks were a little hot. As the captain, he actually needs a deputy captain to protect himself. However, the facts told her that she really seemed to be watching the battle from the sidelines. Manos Grande, who seemed to be irrational, first showed the enemy's weakness. Immediately, when he was about to succeed, he launched a fatal blow. The opponent's fighting instinct is definitely not weaker than anyone. Shimo's Zanpakutō resisted the blade of his arm, so that the shattered B was able to leave the battlefield. This wave of opponents did not make other reactions from the imaginary. The red light in his eyes flickered, locking Shimo firmly. Ryotsu, who originally covered this area, also gradually gathered, and also locked Shimo in front of him. It seems that the target is me. Shimo had a guess in his mind. Eisen initiated this incident. It is very likely that it was to probe him again. A pawn that knows the roots and the bottom is a useful pawn. The naked scrutiny teeth suddenly opened, and red light flickered in them, and Ryotsu gathered in his mouth with lightning speed. Shiba took advantage of the stalemate between the two sides and launched another attack. Virtual bullet. Time accelerates. Shimo doesn't have the same steel skin as the imaginary, so if he hits a imaginary bullet at such a close distance, his death sleeve Niu Ya, it is very likely that this will end. Saifeng's secret footwork. Ning Chuang. The black Haori stayed in place. Shimo's figure escaped the attack of the virtual bullet. The bursting force swallowed his feathers in an instant, and even continued to spread toward the front, bombarding the ground, leaving a bottomless pit. The mouth of the blood basin did not close, and the red light flickered again. Ryotsu gathered in his mouth, and the continuous virtual bullets locked Shimo's position. I didn't hit it so close. I've dodged this, and want to hit me? A hint of disdain flashed in Shimo's eyes, and Shunpo unfolded again. Boom. The continuous 810 explosion sound swallowed this area. The broken bee in the double warfare far away has a pale expression on his face. Her mentality is constantly changing from the initial disdain for virtual whiteness, to later dignity, and even now to fear. This weird emptiness definitely has the strength of Vasto Lord level. The broken bee stared at the imaginary black armor with butterflies blooming on it, but it did not produce any effect. At this time, she already understood. Ryotsu is far weaker than the other. So that Tsuzumbaki's ability doesn't work at all. In fact, Shimo knows the strength of false white better than broken bee. You know, this imaginary self can suppress Shiba Eisen in the Shikai state. Although Aizen once gave Shiba Eisen a backstab, which made him unable to solve it. But it also has Shikai's blessings. What's more, if Kurosaki doesn't really come here, it is estimated that Shiba Eisen may be planted in this world. A large amount of smoke and dust rose up under the explosion of the virtual bomb, gradually obscuring the sight. In the barren land, there are spirits raging everywhere. And the concentration of souls here is not inferior to Soul Society at all. Shimo tried to gather the souls under his feet and rise into the air. However, it was unable to condense, and the density of Lingza was too high. Give up this idea and can only fight Shiba on the ground. Hato's 73 Double Lotus Blue Fire Fall. The blue light of the dining eye blooms in Shimo's palm. A large amount of Ryotsu condensed, turned into a blue explosion and exploded in an instant. Rumble. It was a violent impact, which burst into the center of the explosion. The thick blood like red light gleams not far away. The powerful Ryotsu gave Shimo an ominous premonition. The 81 of Bakudo splitting void. A calm voice poured out from Shimo's mouth. I saw his palm standing in front of him, and a huge transparent wall instantly appeared in front of him. At the moment the splitting void was formed, the smoke and dust was washed away by a thick red light. Sero. I saw Shiba, not far from Shimo, with his head slightly lowered, and the horns on top of his head were facing him. A stout red light shot out from the horns. The surrounding space seemed to be shaking. Shimo clearly saw that around Sero, it had caused a turbulent flow of spirits in the wasteland. Sero vs splitting void. In a hurry, I can't sing Kido at all. The Kido who abandons the singing is much less powerful than the normal Kido. And should be able to block? Shimo didn't have much confidence in his heart either. To be precise, from the beginning of the battle to the present, he has no idea about his level of strength in his mind. Advertisement for more than a year, in addition to going to Demiuli to conduct research on the boundary space. The rest of the time is spent studying Kendo and practicing Sword Zen. The ascent of the ladder of time at each level can bring it an enhancement on Ryotsu. Up to now, Shimo has successfully ascended the 9,999 levels of the ladder of time. However, this made him feel unsure about his Ryotsu level. Or, try Ryotsu fully open. Shimo looked at the splitting void wall that was gradually cracking, and this thought came to mind. The broken bee fighting in the distance noticed the cracks in the splitting void, and the heart suddenly picked up.
No, I have to help Shimo. Just when she was ready to solve it.
Sudden change. The mighty Ryotsu burst out in an instant. Like a landslide and a tsunami, covering the entire barren land in one breath. Shattered Bee's sun was full of shocking expressions. How can it be? This is Shimo's Ryotsu. This is too ridiculous? Zaraki district. 3 figures in black cloaks stood here quietly. The Kido enchantment covered its surroundings, hiding their whereabouts. Oh, it's terrible Ryotsu. In the entire Gode 13, it is difficult to find a comparable existence, right? Ichimaru Jin's voice is light, but there is a hint of solemnity in his tone. When Shimo Ryotsu broke out completely, he even opened his eyes wide. This shows the shock in his heart. I didn't expect the strength of this Kyōraku Shimo to be so terrifying. Tosin Kanami is blind, unable to see the battle scene. But it also made him more sensitive to Ryotsu, the horror rushing to his face like a tsunami, gave him a great sense of chasing. Tosin Kanami was even a little afraid to think about what it would be like if he were to take the place of Shiba now. The deeper the concealment, the more it proves what he thinks. Aizen's tone was still calm, and he couldn't hear any fluctuations in his emotions. Kyōraku Shimo, the ambition in his heart must be higher than that of Yuling. His evaluation surprised Ichimaru Jin and Tosin Kanami. I heard it from a very young age that Aizen gave such a high evaluation to others. Shimo is the exception. Let's go, the value of Vayne has been reflected. Aizen turned and left, without any nostalgia, and Ichimaru Jin and Tosin Kanami can only follow behind them and leave the Zaraki district. Shimo took a deep breath and whispered, miscalculated.
Unexpectedly, the ladder of time is so terrifying, Bia for Ryotsu's bonus.
He once met with Kyōraku Shunsui's Ryotsu Changfang. Shimo can be sure that there is absolutely no such horrible scene in front of him. Sero, whose power was largely resisted by the splitting void, was wiped out the moment Ryotsu was completely released. Shiba is like a demonstrating beast, roaring, he doesn't have much wisdom now. I knew so. Shimo's tone is calm, and his eyes are gradually waveless like the still lake.
It would be better to solve you earlier. Boom. Perceiving the whiteness of the dangerous aura, the spirit instantly approached Shimo. When Sero didn't play a role, he chose close combat based on his combat instinct.
However, as everyone knows, close combat is Shimo's strength. Shubai's body is surrounded by the unique pressure of Shu, which eliminates most of the pressure that comes from Shimo's pressure. The towering is not weaker than the speed of the broken bee. Shimo raised the knife to resist the slash of the blade of Shubai's arm. Then came a continuous, dazzling infinite slash. A violent sonic boom sounded around. The dense interlaced sound of gold and iron gives people a sense of visual confusion. Kendo. Shishui. The secret sword born out of God's dream of a sword, Shishui. Shimo's fine snowsword moves, has been integrated into his own artistic conception. If Shubai was conscious, he might find that the slashing of his arm's blade became more and more slow. The dense snowflakes welcome every slash Lang's killing intent gradually swallowed the surrounding spirits. Still the space, the dull voice seems to be condemning a vain death sentence. With Shimo as the center, the space within a radius of 100 meters makes an overwhelming sound. The slender red blade was raised, and Ryotsu condensed. Kendo. Promise. The dazzling light bloomed on the blade, swallowing the void in an instant. After a few breaths, Shimo's ears sounded a system beep. Check-in task completed, rewards are being issued. Congratulations to host for gaining the pinnacle of Kido. A large amount of Kido's knowledge instantly flooded Shimo's mind. Splitting pain, fleeting advertisement. Shimo shook his head, analyzing the Kido knowledge in it. What surprised him was that, except for Kido and Kido Forbidden Technique, the rest of Kido were already masters. The broken bee watched the battle intently, always sensing the fluctuations of Ryotsu on both sides. However, under the bright light of the sword, the white Ryotsu disappeared. Only then did she know how big the gap between herself and Shimo was. The opponent that he couldn't solve was so relaxed and comfortable with Shimo. Except for Haori, who was destroyed by a virtual bullet when the empty cicada was first used. Shimo couldn't even find the dust on his body. It turns out that he has been accommodating me for so long. Broken Bee recalled more than a year. I want to know the whereabouts of Shihu and Yoruichi, so I keep asking Shimo. However, the other party didn't mean to do anything, just used Shunpo again and again to get rid of himself. Thinking of this, Broken Bee's face couldn't help but show a trace of guilt. She is a person who knows the rules. If it weren't for Shihu and Yoruichi, those actions wouldn't happen. The Broken Bee looked in Shimo's direction, his eyes a little complicated. It turned into a spirit child and dissipated. Shimo was a little surprised. It seems that Eisen should have a backhand on Shubai. Pity. A look of regret appeared on his face. If you can capture a little bit of debris, it may be able to change the direction of the pattern. Kuretsuchi Mayuri's research ability is worthy of recognition. His attainments above the soul are second only to Eisen and Urahara Kazuki. If there is a real object, it is not a problem to research something out. In the case of death, Shiba directly turned into a spiritual child and dissipated in the air. Although Shi Ting was able to stop this behavior, Shimo did not carry a preservation tool and gave up this move. He squinted and came to the broken bee. The broken bee at this time seemed to be immersed in his own thinking, and did not notice the arrival of Shimo. It wasn't until a slight pain on his face that broken bee's thinking returned to reality. What are you thinking about? Shimo withdrew his hand without leaving a trace, secretly admiring that it feels good. Broken bee seems to have not recovered from his thoughts, his expression is a bit dazed. No, nothing, just this time Shimo helplessly said. What else can I do? It's fine to report truthfully. The broken monster hesitated a little, hesitated to say one. But, you have hidden your strength before. Shimo squeezed his head and asked rhetorically. If I say that even I don't know what Ryotsu did just now. Do you believe it? Originally, he just went with one room. A look of regret appeared on his face. If you can capture a little debris, it may be able to change the direction of the pattern. Kuretsuchi Miyuri's research ability is worthy of recognition. His attainments above the soul are second only to Eisen and Urahara Kazuki. If there is a real object, it is not a problem to research something out. In the case of death, Shiba directly turned into a spiritual child and dissipated in the air. Although Shi Ting was able to stop this behavior, Shimo did not carry a preservation tool and gave up this move. He squinted and came to the broken bee. The broken bee at this time seemed to be immersed in his own thinking, and did not notice the arrival of Shimo. It wasn't until a slight pain on his face that broken bee's thinking returned to reality. What are you thinking about? Shimo withdrew his hand without leaving a trace, secretly admiring that it feels good. Broken bee seems to have not recovered from his thoughts, his expression is a bit dazed. No, nothing, just this time Shimo helplessly said. What else can I do? It's fine to report truthfully. The broken monster hesitated a little, hesitated to say one. But, you have hidden your strength before. Shimo squeezed his head and asked rhetorically. If I say that even I don't know what Ryotsu did just now. Do you believe it? Originally, he just went with one room. However, broken bee nodded again and again, affirming. I believe. That's right. Shimo was stunned. You believe it? You believe it's so outrageous? Broken bee was puzzled, wrinkled his nose, and had a firm tone. Well, believe it, she said that. On the contrary, it made Shimo feel a little unconfident. Shimo circled the broken bee, patrolling. Then he stretched out his big hand and pressed it on the top of broken bee, wondering. Is this blown to my head by a virtual bomb? Chapter 83 The Three Captains Chiji. A letter of visit from Suna Yayoi. Advertisement, damn it. The broken bee glared at Shimo and slapped his hand off. If you hide your strength, naturally you have your own ideas. I am a person with a clear sense of grievances, and this matter is naturally will help you hide it. Following Sui Chang's explanation, Shimo also gradually cleared up her thoughts. What's more, you saved me twice in a row on this day. The crushing sound is a little bit small, and the cheeks on both sides are slightly red. So, these are what I should do, Shimo sighed, with an unusually helpless tone. But, have you considered one thing? Broken raised her head blankly and looked at Shimo. Such a huge Ryotsu coverage, wouldn't Lingting be aware of it? If there is no accident, you will have to have a captain meeting when you go back this time. Shimo didn't worry too much. Hidden strength or something is simply a trivial matter. In fact, the crux of the problem lies in Shibai. What kind of enemy is it that made Shimo burst out such an amazing Ryotsu to fight? You Lingting in. At the moment Shimo Ryotsu broke out, everyone stopped their work and looked in the direction of North Rukongai. The 4th Division. Eggflower Lai stopped her flower arranging behavior, and the two slender willow eyebrows clashed together. She is very familiar with North Rukongai, where she fought with Zaraki Kenpachi. Similarly, she is very familiar with Shimo's Ryotsu. Shimo was in the 4th Division, but she did not compete with her in Kendo. Occasionally hitting real fire, it also broke out a duel between Ryotsu. Inawayo looked worriedly in the direction of North Rukongai. Although Ryotsu is so large that it is a bit strange, I never thought it was Shimo-kun's Ryotsu. What kind of a tricky enemy is it that made him burst out such a terrifying Ryotsu? Egg Huali didn't realize that the flower branch in her hand was touched to pieces unconsciously. 8th Division. Kyōraku Shunsui lay down on the roof with dignity, enjoying the afternoon sun. The wine glasses delivered to the mouth from time to time reflect his attitude towards life. Similarly, at the moment Shimo Ryotsu exploded, his hands suddenly froze in the air, and the drink accidentally scattered on his pink-patterned haori. Little Mineo, let me go out. Kyōraku Shunsui dropped a word and left the 8th Division directly. Noble Street, Kuchiki's house, one of the 4 nobles. Byakuya Kuchiki, who is enjoying the flowers with Kuchiki Hijin in the garden at home, his expression suddenly freezes. Byakuya Kuchiki looked at the happy woman beside her and said softly. Fei Jen, I'll go out. Kuchiki Feiji seemed to realize something, The smile on his face was a bit narrow, and he softly agreed. Well, I am waiting for you at home. Northern Rukongai, Zaraki district. A man and a woman dressed in Black Death Tyrant costumes walked in the most chaotic neighborhood. Because it is considered that the imaginary white appears from the direction of Zaraki district. So Shimo wondered whether he could find certain clues in the heavy wood area, good and bad. However, no clues were found, but a new understanding of the harsh environment in Zaraki district. The environment in Shimu district is bad, and Silk Pavilion is not inferior to the Land of Waste. If it is to compare survival rates, the two should not be much different. In other words, the Zaraki area is more brutal, the 31 red cannon of Hado. Shimo's fingertips burst into red flames, and rushed out immediately. The burst of Ryatsu flames instantly swallowed all the souls in front of you. This is the first wave we have encountered. Shimo's face is a bit ugly. The expression of the broken bee is not much better. The 29th wave of attacks, the opponent's strength is at least an ordinary team member. The chaos in the Zaraki district is beyond my imagination. Shimo talks. Not only that, they are also very malicious towards Lingting. When I saw Shinigami, I rushed forward and bite like a mad dog. Before coming, Shimo and Broken Bee reached the border of Zaraki district at the fastest speed. Therefore, did not stay in the Zaraki district but now, trying to find some clues in the Zaraki district, but encountering multiple difficulties. Although these flowing souls are not able to pose a threat to the two of them.
Advertisement. However, wave after wave is always annoying.
Kill all these dirty and despicable Shinigami. The decadent Yulingting, it's time to rebuild a new system. Before he walked a few miles away, he encountered another wave of attacks. Crazy souls, the expressions on their faces are distorted, the clothes on their bodies are torn, and they are holding spiritual weapons that they don't know where they got, and they denounce the Shinigami. Broken Bee looked at Shimo and asked what he meant. How to do? Kill all of them. While talking, her agitated Ryatsu was wrapped around her legs. Shimo frowned slightly, and he didn't care about the craziness in front of him, but looked behind them. Bakudo. 6200 step railings. There was a hint of determination in the soft voice. Several hexagonal beams of light emerged from behind the flow souls. Pouting, the hexagonal beam of light penetrated Lu Hun's body without hindrance, and directly fixed them to the ground. Broken Bee looked at the visitor in surprise. Captain Eggflower, Captain Kuchiki, Captain Kyōraku. You, how come you all come here suddenly? The person who plays Kido is the Eggflower.
For their appearance, Broken Bee showed great surprise at first.
However, after noticing Shimo's indifferent look, he figured it out for a while. The three captains in front of him all have a deep connection with Shimo. Therefore, they must come for their safety. It looks like we are already late. Eggflower Lai smiled softly, her eyes outlined beautiful arcs. I didn't expect Shimo-kun to hide so deeply. I hope I can see your full strength the next time I compete in Kendo. Kyōraku Shunsui was relieved to see that Shimo was not hurt at all. I haven't worked so aggressively in the 8th division. B************* D kid. Byakuya Kuchiki's language expression is much more refined. It's fine. Shimo sighed, the scene in front of him was unexpected. But knowing that so many people care about themselves is a very good thing. First of all, I have to make a statement. Shimo explained, Ryatsu's problem, even I don't know much about tea. Secondly, we met the Manos Grande who was suspected of Vasto Lord. Its strength is tyrannical, and it's not weaker than a strong captain. I was also fighting with the broken monster before I killed it. He turned his gaze to Kyōraku Shunsui. Secondly, stupid Obi-san. Those shameful things should not be publicized in the public, okay? If you continue to be so lazy, the 8th division might as well consider changing the position of captain to Sister Naneo. Upon hearing this, Kyōraku Shunsui glared, and he swept away the sluggishness in normal days. What qualifications do you have to say about me? Don't think I don't know what you did in the 4th division. The task of the deputy captain is clearly handled by the 3 seats of Katetsu Izan. The mutual revelation of the two people relaxes the surrounding atmosphere a lot. As for Shimo's words, they didn't have the slightest doubt. In their opinion, Shimo has used his usual behavior to build this trust. So, it doesn't matter whether it is a lie or not. They only know that they are on Shimo's side, that's enough. However, on the way back to Yulingting, Broken Bee found something weird. By the way, what about those crazy souls? Why does it seem to disappear all of a sudden? Shimo Nunu mouth, vaguely motioned. Probably because of fear? Hearing this, the color of doubt on Broken Bee's face grew thicker. Fear? Why do those lunatics have such emotions? You know, when they attacked, they didn't even fear death at all. Shimo glanced at Eggflower and met his gentle gaze. At the moment she noticed her nodding, Shimo continued. A weak creature like a rabbit when facing carnivorous creatures approaching. Seeking flowers advertisement, the only way to deal with it is to run indefinitely. They even lost the courage to resist. This is the instinct engraved in their blood. For this explanation, Broken Bee is thoughtful, but still has many doubts. The souls of Shimu district are like rabbits encountering natural enemies. Shimo's tone was calm. Death is not terrible to them. The scary thing is the existence that brought them death. When Onohana-ri was the first-generation Kenpachi, he used to choose his favorite men in the Zaraki district. Although Kenpachi's fight left him with madness, but the damage she brought to Zaraki district is not inferior to Zaraki Kenpachi's murder. If it is explained in accordance with the metaphor of the food chain. In the Zaraki area, Unohana Retsu is undoubtedly at the top of the food chain. Her deterrence was far more terrifying than a senseless massacre. Without the harassment of the Ryukens, the search for clues about the Zaraki district was also much more convenient. It is a pity that Aizen and the others are very clean. Not to mention it is a clue, even the white Ryatsu remains, there is nothing left. Lingting, a team house. The team house of the 1st Division is located on the side of the mountain, hanging on the mountain like a hanging temple. The first thing Shimo and the others did when they returned to the Lingting was to go to the captain's office to report on the details of the mission. Although this mission is dominated by Broken Bee, but in the process of the mission, it was Shimo who turned the tide. In this regard, Broken Bee asked him for the report on the details of the mission. Shiguo said, "Tell the truth, with the emergence of first generation's whiteness, the water of Soul Society was once again muddled. Maybe you Lingting should share certain responsibilities." Captain's office. Shimo and Broken Bee looked at the old man in front of them calmly, waiting for his reply. Previously, Sui Ching had recounted all the details of the task. Yamamoto Motonujai pressed his hands on the cane, closing his eyes and thinking. The appearance of imaginary whiteness is not a trivial matter. In addition to the investigation team dispatched this time, the entire army was wiped out except for Shattered Bee and Shimo. The way of his death was the Kido spell blue that Shinigami was able to cause. What does this mean? Among the Shinigami team members, there was an element of instability. It is very possible that the weird Manos Grande is also inseparable from these unstable factors. There was silence in the room. After a long time, the old voice sounded leisurely. The details of this mission are banned. Shinigami, who is under the captain's position, has no right to watch and inquire. Yamamoto Motonyasasai opened his slightly closed eyes, and a sense of majesty that could not be denied flashed in his eyes. In addition, for the deputy captain Kyōraku Shimo to hide his own strength. No merit or demerit, no judgment. Shimo's forehead surrendered. Turn this page up. The imaginary thing ends here. However, everyone with a discerning eye can see that this incident is more like the beginning of a major event. The sky above Jing Lingting seems to be covered by a cloud of boundless clouds. The dull atmosphere made people breathless. Shimo, who completed the mission, once again led a leisurely life in the 4th Division. Occasionally try kendo with Oino Hanaretsu, or bully Katetsu Izan. Life should be called leisurely. Unfortunately, he cannot participate in the monthly flower arrangement competitions held by the 4th Division. Since participating in the competition for the first time and creating earth-shattering works, Unohana Retsu has been granted a ban. This is the first time since the founding of the 4th Division. Regarding this, Shimo didn't know whether to be happy or sad. It's a shame to be straight. Shimo shook his head. My flower arranging technique is obviously very good. This kind of leisure time has been maintained for a long time. Until, a letter of visit was delivered to Shimo. Master Shimo, this is a letter of visit from the 4 nobles. Shimo took the envelope in Kashima Yusuke's hand with a look of confusion, and said, 4 nobles? Which one? Seeing the noble badge on the envelope, Shimo was stunned. Tsuneyashiro's house? 0 Chapter 84 Tsuneyashiro Tokinada's visit and death. Advertisement. The Tsuneyashiro family, one of the 4 nobles of the Soul Society, is responsible for the management of the Great Lingshu Corridor. As a family that knows all the history and information of Soul Society, the degree of mystery can be imagined. However, with the current patriarch, Tsuneyashiro Tokinada's high position, the family members also withered instantly. Tsuneyashiro Tokinada was originally the last member of the family, and was not eligible to inherit the position of head of the family. But after he designed the assassination of other heirs in the family, he inherited the Tsuneyashiro family and became a pivotal existence in Soul Society. The influence of the 4 nobles in Soul Society is not weaker than that of Gode 13. What's more, families like the Tsuneyashiro's family that hold the Hall of Shadows and the Great Spirit Book Corridor. But Shimo didn't take this guy in his eyes. After all, in this world, among the 3 worlds of Soul Society and Hueco Mundo, those who can control the right to speak are still the strong after all. Shimo admires Eisen and admires Yamamoto Uenyanagi. That's because they have admirable strength, and even have the ability to destroy the world. But what Tsuneyashiro Tokinada has is nothing more than a Zanpakutō that can replicate the abilities of other people's Zanpakutō. And it's also restricted by its own Ryatsu. It was him now, nothing but conspiracy and tricks. A villain who only hides behind his back. Shimo burned the envelope to ashes and threw it into the flower bed outside the window. The flower garden of the 4th Division is full of gentian flowers. The light purple gentian flowers are paved into a flower bed, giving a sense of freshness. After seeing the envelope, Shimo's dull mood gradually improved. August 10. He understands that since he started to show his strength, In Soul Society, a lot of eyes have paid attention to him. In addition to Liu Kai's Zaraki Kenpachi, who has been looking for the 4th squad house, Kido and multiple squads threw an olive branch to him. Shimo naturally chose to reject all of these behaviors. Joke. Although the conditions you gave are very good, can you compare with the 4th division? After all, I am also a deputy captain here. What's more, there is also Sister Wa in the 4th division. Don't go anywhere. Shimo's attitude is very firm. But the situation is different this time. Suna Yayoi Tokinada used the authority of the 4 great nobles to visit him.
At that time, he will go to Kyōraku's home for a friendly exchange.
As for the topic of communication, naturally it is free. Forget it, see the last time. Shimo thought again, it just happens to see what this guy's purpose is. Before the Black Hand in Soul Society is revealed, I don't think he has the guts to jump out in advance. He was quite curious about Tsuneyashiro Tokinada's purpose. Originally, he was also a very ambitious person. For example, discussing with Shihuan Yoruichi, who is also one of the 4 nobles, revives the Shiba family and revitalizes the power of the 5 nobles, so as to become an institution that surpasses Central 46 and governs the 3 realms. Unfortunately, the mismatch between strength and ambition became the key to its failure. 3 days later, at Kyōraku's home, Shimo waited at home for Tsuneyashiro Tokinada's visit. Originally, the 4 great nobles came to the homes of the upper-class nobles. As the lower-class nobles, they should perform certain ceremonies to welcome.
But with Shimo's character, it's already a great thing to be able to see him.
As for the welcome ceremony, I'm afraid it's not thinking about fart.
Tsuneyashiro Tokinada also arrived at Noble Street, only to find that the street is still as usual without any changes. He suppressed the anger in his heart, still put on an expression of closeness and kindness, and walked directly to Kyōraku's house.
It's just like an ordinary friend visiting. When Suna Yayoi Tokinada sat across from Shimo, Shimo realized that this guy seemed to have a match with Ichimaru Jin in terms of disguise ability. However, the purpose of the two is different, which leads to a slight gap in camouflage ability. One is for love and the other is for ambition. The starting point is different. Why does Tsuneyashiro Tokinada compare with Ichimaru Jin? Patriarch Tsunaya, don't you know what you want to do with me? Shimo has a light tone, without the slightest respect. Hearing that, Suna Yayoi Tokinada was a little irritated in his heart. Fortunately, his excellent self-control ability temporarily suppresses negative emotions. With dark green hair scattered on his shoulders, Suna Yayoi Tokinada grinned lightly, and said with a smile. Shimo-kun, I'm here this time to discuss cooperation between the Tsuneyashiro and Kyōrakus. Don't you think this world is too dull? It was supposed to be a sunny smile, but there was no warmth. In Shimo's eyes, the smile seemed to be in the gloomy environment, the ink-black lion majesty's lightly vomiting snake letter permeated people. Do not think so. Shimo shook his head. Also, you should discuss this matter with the Kyōraku patriarch. I don't have the right to decide such an important thing. Advertisement Tsuneyashiro Tokinada's expression remained unchanged, and it seemed that Shimo would have expected such an answer. Then what if it is about the true ability? Shimo raised his brows and asked. The image hall? Suna Yayoi Tokinada smiled and nodded, bringing the sinister essence to ultimate. Although you know the authority of the imaging hall, it would be better for me to explain it to you. When I noticed you, it was when you were promoted to deputy captain of the 4th division. It turns out that this guy is always staring at some big events in Soul Society. As an outstanding early graduate of the Spiritual Arts Academy, Shimo naturally attracted some attention. But it is limited to this. However, as he soon assumed the post of deputy captain of the 4th division, Tsuneyashiro Tokinada paid more attention to Shimo. The surging images show that the space and time around Shimo have occasionally been disordered. This also made Tsuneyashiro Tokinada more and more interested in it. After a long period of observation, Tsuneyashiro Tokinada finally determined Shimo's Zanpakutō ability. It is very likely to have a great relationship with space and time. As an ambitious person, Tsuneyashiro Tokinada Kuchu is an existence that needs to be wooed. Zanpakutō with such ability must be an existence with great potential. However, with the outbreak of Shimo Ryatsu, it caused a lot of fluctuations in Soul Society. Tsuneyashiro Tokinada also realized that if he didn't win over, there would be no chance. After listening to his explanation, Shimo couldn't help but laugh. Should I praise you for being smart, or should I scold you for being stupid? Tsuneyashiro Tokinada, who was originally a little proud, suddenly looked stunned. The smile on his face disappeared, and his brows slightly voted. What's the meaning? It's just literal. Shimo picked up the wine glass and drank all the wine in the glass. Because Kyōraku Shunsui likes to drink, there are very few tea leaves at home. This has also led to the fact that Shiba can only use sake as a drink on weekdays. The Tsuneyashiro family is originally the 4 nobles in the Soul Society, and their power is no longer comparable. Although because of some of your magical operations, the power of the family was defeated. But from what you said and did today, some things can be vaguely judged. When he heard the second sentence, Tsuneyashiro Tokinada's expression had changed greatly. There is a bad feeling in his heart. My visit to Shimo this time is most likely the worst move I have ever made in my life. First, you have greater ambitions, such as surpassing Central 46, or dominating the Three Realms. Suna Yayoi Tokinada suddenly stared in his heart, his face gradually becoming hard to look. The smile on Shimo's face became brighter when he noticed the change in his expression. Second, I really thought that Master had some information about me, even if it was grabbing my handle? Two rhetorical questions made Suna Yayoi Tokinada's expression hard to see ultimate. It was like swallowing a few flies. Before he could speak, he heard Shimo continue to say. Although there is no evidence, do you really think that you, the patriarch, have come upright? Does the Tsuneyashiro scandal really want me to resock you again? Two more questions were thrown out. At this time, Suna Yayoi Tokinada was already sweating profusely. The violent thinking activity made him gasp and look very embarrassed. You, who are you? Shimo laughed and said. I, a member of the superior Kyōraku family of Soul Society, an excellent graduate of the Spiritual Arts Academy, Kyōraku Shimo, the deputy captain of the 4th Division. The Patriarch Sunya, who controls the Great Spiritual Art Corridor in the Hall of Reflection, doesn't know who I am. For those who want to rely on a little handle to threaten themselves, Shimo chooses to deal with the plan is to deal with an eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth. Judging from the current results, it's pretty good. Tsuneyashiro Tokinada is completely immersed in fear of Shimo. Those things, in his opinion, are clearly seamless and impossible to be discovered at all. But how does Kyōraku Shimo know all this? Shimo's words have completely defeated his heart. A word of advice to you. Shimo's contemptuous eyes were like looking down at a humble insect. Huge ambition is not a bad thing, but if you don't have the strength to match your ambition, it becomes an irresistible disaster. Yan Luo Jingdian's ability can't allow you to replace Central 46. Tsuneyashiro Tokinada didn't even know how he left Kyōraku's house. But when he returned to Tsuneyashiro's home, he saw himself in the mirror on the table. Og expression, blank eyes like a walking corpse. His confidence was completely dissipated after Shimo's words, and he couldn't get up again. Advertisement. Suna Yayoi Tokinada stared at himself in the mirror, and for a long time, a wry smile appeared at the corner of his mouth. Everything, so close, but so far away. Oh, that's it. The next day, a piece of information that shocked Soul Society spread throughout the Lingting. From Central 46 to Gode 13, everyone was surprised. The Tsuneyashiro family, one of the 4 great nobles, whose head Tsuneyashiro Tokinada, died in his own home. Cause of death. Suicide. Shimo, who heard this news, had an unusually wrong expression. This guy actually committed suicide? Fear of committing suicide? It shouldn't be. Obviously, he doesn't believe in Suna Yayoi Tokinada's character and commits suicide. Shimo doesn't know much about being a ruthless person who can kill his own family, like there is a dozen 7 people next door. But his character is not as fragile as him. Things are far from being as simple as they seem. But he didn't have the mind to think about those things anymore. Although Tsuneyashiro Tokinada died of suicide, he visited Kyōraku Shimo at Kyōraku's house the day before. This matter, many people know, is not a secret. Central 46, still assigned related tasks. Kyōraku Shimo, what happened yesterday? The executor is the Kuchiki family, the head of the 4 nobles, Byakuya Kuchiki. CALL 0.0 Byakuya Kuchiki sighed and looked at the leisurely Shimo in front of him and said helplessly. Go ahead, what did you talk about last night, so that after Suna Yayoi Tokinada went back, he committed suicide? Shimo is very fond of Kuchiki's special sake. It tastes sweet and has a refreshing fragrance of sakura flowers. Unfortunately, the annual output is extremely limited and can only be provided to the Kuchiki family. Byakuya Kuchiki also tried to give part of the remaining sake to Shimo. Shimo recollected the taste in his mouth and smiled. What can there be? It's nothing more than Lala's usual routine, to talk about my energy in the 4th division. Byakuya Kuchiki looked at him suspiciously and asked. When did you two get so close? How can I never know? Shimo urged narrowly. Dabai, are you jealous of my popularity? Hearing this, Kuchiki's face suddenly changed, and gritted his teeth. Please note that we are interrogating and you are the interrogated. Now Central 46 suspects that you have something to do with Tsuneyashiro Tokinada's death. Also, don't call me confess. Shimo perfunctorily. Yeah, I see. Dabai. I will pay attention next time. Dazi. Byakuya Kuchiki clenched his fist, then let it go, feeling a little weak. I'll help you fool around on Central 46 for this matter. In addition, Sha Kia reported to me yesterday that the 3rd officer of the 13th Division did an inspection mission in the dog position. Unfortunately, the annual output is extremely limited and can only be provided to the Kuchiki family. Byakuya Kuchiki also tried to give part of the remaining sake to Shimo. Shimo recollected the taste in his mouth and smiled. What can there be? It's nothing more than Lala's usual routine, to talk about my energy in the 4th division. Byakuya Kuchiki looked at him suspiciously and asked. When did you two get so close? How can I never know? Shimo urged narrowly. Dabai, are you jealous of my popularity? Hearing this, Kuchiki's face suddenly changed, and gritted his teeth. Please note that we are interrogating and you are the interrogated. Now Central 46 suspects that you have something to do with Tsuneyashiro Tokinada's death. Also, don't call me confess. Shimo perfunctorily, yeah, I see, da bye. I will pay attention next time, da zi. Byakuya Kuchiki clenched his fist, then let it go, feeling a little weak. I'll help you fool around on Central 46 for this matter. In addition, Shaw Kia reported to me yesterday that the 3rd officer of the 13th Division did an inspection mission in the dog position. Chapter 85 Shiba Kaien's Battle and Shimo's Guarantee. Advertisement, the 3rd officer of the 13th Division? Shimo's face was surprised, somewhat surprised. Compared with Tsuneyashiro Tokinada's death, this news made him pay more attention to it. If he remembers correctly, the 3 seats in the 13th Division should be a woman named Shiba Do. At the same time, she is also Shiba Heidang's wife. Her death should cause certain things to happen. Shimo felt it necessary to go to the 13th Division. As for the Central 46 side, Kuchiki is self-defeating, it is not a big problem. What's more, Tsuneyayoi Tokinada's death has nothing to do with him. Plus, Shimo guessed that this guy might have used some Zanpakutō ability to hide the fact of suicide. After the survivors lost their secrets, Suna said that Dai Tokinada could no longer stay in his home with peace of mind.
If Shimo would stab everything out of that year, even if he is the current patriarch of the Tsuneyashiro family, he cannot escape the fate of being sent to the Palace of Thrones.
Concealment may be a better choice. Shimo left Kuchiki's house and went directly to the 13th Division. Because of the relationship between Kyōraku Shunsui and Jashiro Yukitake, Shimo often went to the 13th Division a long time ago. At that time, Jashiro Yukitake also sent him an invitation to join the team. Unfortunately, Shimo Ishin pounced on the 4th Division and declined his invitation. Regarding this matter, Jashiro Yukitake regretted for a long time. Because he believes that Shimo's character is bound to bring vitality to the entire 13th Division. Although the 13th Division is already active enough under the leadership of Toruchi Chingyan and Katsubaki Sentaro. The 13th Division Team House, Atrium House. When Shimo arrived here, there were quarrels and violent coughing in the house. The enemy's name, appearance, or even ability are unknown. Ahem, now you give me a good stay here, let the Crusade team deal with it. Although Jashiro's voice sounded very weak, and it was accompanied by a violent cough. But in his tone, he was tempted to give a hint that he couldn't refuse. I understand your feelings, but this is not a problem that can be solved by acting with will. To the team members, Jashiro Yukitake has always held an attitude of loving his subordinates. He cherishes every member of his team. If among the 13 current captains of Gode 13, choose the captain who is most popular with the team members. There is no doubt that the elected person is Jashiro Yukitake. Even if most of the weekdays, he rests in Yugantang.
However, his gentle and kind character, as well as his care for the team members, made his evaluation in Gotei 13 surprisingly high.
The members of the 13th Division also respect it very much. Yes, but Shiba Kaien clenched his fists, almost overflowing with grief. Jashiro Yukitake sighed and said softly, what I know now is the next 2 things. One is that this phantom attacking the reconnaissance team is not a mobile type, but will build a nest and stay in a predator somewhere. The other thing is, where his lair is. When the voice fell, the door of the atrium room was opened, and a figure appeared at the door. Because Shimo often comes to the 13th Division, Shimo's appearance is also well known by the team members. Coupled with the relationship of Kyōraku Shunsui, he can move around in the 13th Division. Jashiro Yukitake never cared about it. Captain Jashiro. Shimo's voice attracted everyone's attention. Shimo. Jashiro Yukitake and Rukia called out their names in unison, with a bit of surprise in their tone. Fuyukiya quickly noticed the atmosphere and suppressed her inner emotions. Ahem, how come you suddenly come to the 13th Division? Jashiro Yukitake's face is still very pale, always coughing when speaking. Shimo looked around the room except for Jashiro Yukitake, Shiba Kaien, and Rukia. Katetsu Izan and Katsubaki Sendaro were also here. However, the sadness on their faces added a bit of coldness to the room. In the middle of the room, a bed was placed here, with a white cloth covering the body. If you don't go outside, it should be the 3rd place in the 13th Division, Shiba's remains. Shimo's tone is a bit heavy. I heard the news of Shiba's 3 sacrifices from Captain Kuchiki, and came here specially. Speaking of this, the atmosphere in the room became more and more cold. Jashiro Yukitake sighed and said, because I knew the location of the imaginary lair, I was going to attack it. Come with you too. From beginning to end, Shiba Kaien's gaze is focused on self-distribution and cannot be transferred. Advertisement Shimo knew the grief in his heart, but he didn't go up to persuade him. At this time, the only thing that can let him vent his grief is to execute the murderer. But this scene also sounded a wake-up call for Shimo. To live a lifetime again means to have the person or thing that you care about again. In this dangerous world, if you don't have enough strength. In the future, he may replace Shiba Kaien's current position. In this crusade team, Jashiro Yukitake is supporting his sickly body and must follow. In this regard, Shiba Kaien also remembered this kindness in his heart. In addition, Rukia and Shimo followed. For Shiba-do, Shimo had had many dealings with him when he came to the 13th division. No matter how you look at it, he is a person of good character. Shimo has also revealed some information about the future, and wants to help him change this tragic fate. However, the other party didn't seem to be too concerned. This also led to the occurrence of Tragedy West Rukongai, District 72. This is the information from the 13th Division Crusade team, which is passed back with a cow's life. When Shimo and the others arrived here, they quickly noticed the virtual breath coming from the depths of the forest. Walking through the forest, Shimo and others came to a loose place. Ahead, the mountain stands tall and there is a huge cave at the foot of the mountain. In it, the virtual Ryotsu continues to come out and the pungent smell. Is this the empty shelter? Shiba Kaien's sad expression before turning became determined again. That's right. In order to avoid coughing, Jashiro Yukitaki tries to shorten the time he speaks. The sound of heavy breathing gradually came out from the cave. The four stood on the branches of the nearby trees, observing the entrance of the cave. Unbearable, the taste of the food. A weird sound came from the mouth of the cave. Under the attention of everyone, I saw a crab-like virtual crawling out of it. Blood-red tentacles, covering the top of the head, blood-red marks on the clean mask surround the eye sockets, and 4 sharp horns are curved upwards on both sides of the chin. The 6 limbs are located at the lower end of the body, giving people a shocking feeling. Hey, fresh soul. Hey, strange laughter came from the empty mouth. Obviously, this is a self-conscious Manos Grande clique. Rukia shook her Zanpakutō and said, I'll check it out first. Before she left, Shimo pressed her shoulder. This enemy, leave it to Senior Kaien. Shimo's tone was heavy. This is a battle of dignity. Rukia looked at Shimo blankly. We just need to be a good audience. Shimo said relievedly. Sure enough, just finished his words. Shiba Kaien first glanced at Shimo with gratitude and then said, Captain, please allow me to fight alone. In his eyes, Jashiro Yukitaki saw the look of recklessness and death. After a long time, he sighed softly and said, Permit. At the moment Shiba Kaien was about to jump from the tree, Shimo spoke. I once saw this fictitious related record in the Technology Development Bureau. His name is Meta Nakatasia. His ability can make Shinigami's Zanpakutō disappear. He will merge and destroy the body and mind of the prey. Please be careful, for Shiba Kaien, Shimo still respects him. Let alone his kindness in teaching Rukia to fight, Shimo alone has been taken care of by him. For reasons and emotions, Shimo didn't want him to die under this ugly Manos Grande. With intelligence, it is not difficult to solve this guy. You know, Shiba Kaien's strength is second to none among the deputy captains. Hearing Shimo's words, Shiba Kaien was stunned for a moment, then smiled confidently and responded. Thank you, I understand. Shiba Kaien jumped down from the tree and came to Stasia. Hey, advertisement? Discuss who is going to die first, kid. Stasia yelled, weird laughter facing the enemy who killed his wife. Shiba Kaien quickly calmed down. Before the war, I have something to ask you. How many Shinigami souls have you eaten so far? Stasia tilted her head, looking at Shinigami in front of her, arrogantly said. What a stupid question. I, like you, have an ideological existence. Your question is completely meaningless to answer. Because I don't care how much food I eat. Shiba Kaien was silent, his expression gradually gloomy. Then you never regret it? Hearing this, Stasia suddenly laughed. Hey, you can ask such stupid questions, kid. I regret it now. I regret that the woman Shinigami didn't start eating from the upper body last night. The crazy roar sounded the horn of battle. P*******K. Shiba Kaien could no longer calm down the killing intent in his heart, suddenly pulled out Zanpakutō from his waist, and slashed at him. Mouthful. The sound of the body being ripped apart is so pleasing to Shiba Kaien. Roar. Stasia uttered a roar of pain. 810, blood splashing in and out of the tentacles on his head. The overflowing blood makes the scene look particularly miserable. Ryotsu gathered at the feet of Shiba Kaien, Shunpo launched. The black figure disappeared instantly, and when it reappeared, it had already reached the top of Stasia's head. His right hand suddenly grabbed the opponent's tentacles, and Zanpakutō, who held it high, wanted to give him the final blow. Shuishin Nawan, Binwa. A sneer appeared on Stasia's face. Boy, your Zanpakutō can no longer cause harm to me. When the voice fell, Zanpakutō in Shiba Kaien's hand turned into a spiritual child and disappeared into the air. Hado number 63 Fiery Lightning Hell. The moment Zanpakutō disappeared, Shiba Kaien's hands had already gathered Ryotsu for Hado. Because of Shimo's reminder, he was wary even with grief in his heart. Shiba Kaien didn't break his feet. All actions are based on killing this Manos Grande. The dazzling light of thunder is advancing in the heart of the hall, as if the electric flower that can tear the space has fallen on Stasia. Boom! Shiba Kaien turned the grief in his heart into strength, and poured out his Ryotsu to his heart's content. Beast bones scattered everywhere. The wheels of the spire red crystal steel. The wind is the mover, and the sky is the quiet. The sound of spears striking each other resounds through the virtual city. Sing afterwards. It is specifically used to strengthen Kido released by abandoning chanting. If you want the master to release the Kido, you need to have a very high level of knowledge on Kido. The power of thunder and lightning raged on Stasia, and the hot temperature swallowed her body.
After a while, Reiatsu dissipated. Stasia also lost the slightest vitality, and then turned into a spiritual sun, dissipated in the air.
At the end of the battle, Shiba Kaien knelt on the ground weakly, tears in his eyes. Jashiro Yukitake walked over and pressed it on his shoulder. Don't be too sad. From a distance, Shimo quietly watched the scene before him, with deep emotion.
I came here this time and saved Shiba Kaien's life. I didn't have to pay for it.
Shimo. Rukia stood beside him, head raised, eyes facing each other. Hey. A trace of doubt appeared on Shimo's face. Do you think we might encounter this kind of thing too?
Rukia's expression was somewhat depressed. Hearing this, Shimo was taken aback for a moment, then smiled and embraced him in his arms, and said in a low voice.
I assure you, absolutely not. At the same time, he meditated in his heart. In the name of time, Chapter 86 Shiba Isen came and made a hasty decision. Advertisement. Because of Shimo's words, Shiba Kaien successfully killed Metastasia and avenged her. Shiba Kaien was grateful, but also told his family about this incident. Ever since, Kyōraku's home. Shimo looked at the spherical objects piled up in front of him with a stunned look. Here, what are these things? Shiba Kaien scratched his head, an apologetic smile appeared on his face, and said loudly. Because my sister heard about you. She said that in order to thank you for your help, she took out her collection as a gift to you. At first, Shimo didn't feel much, but when Shiba Kaien said that this was his sister's collection, his expression suddenly changed. Wait. You said these are Lingmei's collection? Shiba Kaien laughed heartily, and seemed to be back to the old self. But the sadness that occasionally passes in his eyes cannot be concealed. Yes, she has collected these for a long time. Shimo's mouth twitched, and he already remembered who Shiba Kaien's sister was. Shiba Kong, Rukongai's first pyrotechnician. Not only that, she also masters Soul Society's only normal channel to the Spirit Palace. Although the current Shiba family has begun to show its end, because of the existence of Shiba Sora and Shiba Isen, they are still among the nobles. However, because of Shiba Kongi's research on fireworks, his family address is still scattered among Rukongai. Therefore, these things are self-evident. Shimo's mouth fluttered a few times and said. This is the so-called smoke. Shiba Kaien's answer is very positive. These are specially made by Sora Suru. While creating beautiful fireworks, it also has great power.
Great, mighty. Shimo couldn't help but was speechless.
Although he knows that Shiba Kaien is very confident in Shiba Sora's work, isn't he worried about an accident? Just from the concentrated Reiatsu contained in these fireworks. If all of them explode, it is estimated that Kyōraku's house, and even several aristocratic mansions next to it, will undergo a batch of reconstructions. Shiba Kaien and Shiba Kong will be ordered to hunt down by Central 46 because of the crime of cruelty to nobles. Thank you for your kindness. Facing good intentions, rejection will make people feel guilty. What's more, if these are special products, would they be safe? I guess so. By the way, Shimo-kun. Shiba Kaien smiled. Because of this incident, Uncle will visit you these few days? Shimo raised his brows. Uncle? You are talking about Captain Isen? Shiba Kaien smiled and nodded. In his usual state, his smile is still very contagious. Shiba Isen, as the owner of the branch house, is also the elder of Shiba Kaien and Shiba Kong. The current captain of the juvenile division is responsible for the security and patrol of the entire Yulingding. His own strength is quite good even in Gode 13, it is a very good existence. Shimo scratched his head, a little puzzled. There is no need to thank me so much? The enemy was killed by Kaien, I just reminded it casually. Shiba Kaien's expression gradually became solemn, and he said solemnly. This matter is not only about the hatred of the capital, but also about the dignity of the Shiba family. Please don't say such things, Shimo sighed and said. All right, since Captain Isen wants to come, let him. 3 days later, Shiba Isen came to the appointment. Captain Isen, Deputy Captain Shimo. When talking about business, Shiba Isen still seemed a little serious. But when he noticed the gift he brought, Shimo became speechless. Sure enough, Shiba's family is a virtue, so what does the branch house owner do? In Shiba Kongi's view, fireworks are undoubtedly the most suitable gift. In Shiba Isen's mind, wine is obviously more suitable. But this gift is obviously better for Shimo's taste. Because the Shiba family lives in Rukongai all the year round, the wine they bring is also a specialty of Rukongai. I came here this time mainly because of two things. The two sat at the table opposite each other, tasting the wine in the glass. Their expressions were very pleasant. When Shiba Isen found that Shimo and his hobbies were the same, his expression was relaxed a lot. Although I had heard of Shimo's name a long time ago, I have never met Shimo because of my usual busy schedule. At this meeting, Shimo's personality left him a very good impression. Advertisement. Shimo heard this, with a puzzled expression on his face. Two things? Isn't Captain Eisen here because of Kaien? Shiba Eisen drank the pungent Ryokan liquor, and Shiba Eisen smiled heartily. This is just one thing. Because of your reminder, the possibility of Kaien being injured or even sacrificed was avoided. For this, the Shiba family will always remember your kindness. Shimo sipped the glass of wine and asked, what about the second thing? In Shimo's view, Ryukanshu and Kuchiki's special sake are of the same grade. Both have achieved an ultimate in different taste areas. The former is spicy and mellow, while the latter is sweet and fragrant. Now, the second thing. Shiba Eisen looked around, his expression became sneaky.
Shimo, are you not married yet? Ahem. Shimo almost didn't get choked to death in his own home.
What kind of escape problem is this? Shiba Eisen's funny character, has it been reflected at this time?
Why did you suddenly jump from Shiba Kaien's affairs to him? Captain Eisen, why is it so suddenly? Shimo wiped the drink from his mouth, surprised.
The expression on Shiba Eisen's face was mysterious, as if he was making a major decision. You answer my question first, Shimo affirmed. No, though. Before he finished speaking, he was relieved to see Shiba Eisen. If not, that would be the best. I saw him take out a photo from his arms. Shimo took the photo with some doubts, but saw a woman on it. Tall and slender figure, cheerful smile, long black hair wrapped in white cloth. The convex, the concave, in a word, is definitely a first-class beauty.
This is. Shimo had a guess in his heart, but he didn't say it.
Because of the appearance of the person in the photo, there is a certain discrepancy with the guess in his heart. I am a girl, Shao Kong. Shiba Eisen smiled brightly, although it is the master's family, but he still wants to call my uncle. Because their parents passed away early, so I always worry about them. Now Shao Kong has reached his age, but there is no suitable target. So he hit Shimo with his shoulder and put on an expression that a man understands. Don't say anything else, there is absolutely no problem with the appearance of my little Kong. And he has a cheerful personality. Although he is not shinigami, he also has a very high spiritual talent. What's more, we have the identity of the five nobles. If Shimo still doesn't understand what Shiba Eisen means, then he is really a fool. I think this matter has yet to be discussed. Shimo did not agree. How do you say that? Love comes too fast, like a tornado. Things come too suddenly. Shimo is always in a daze. In the world, how can there be such a good thing? Is someone else coming to you to give you a wife for no reason? Or the kind of aristocrat with beautiful skin, good strength and extremely high talent? Simply, outrageous? Discussion? A soft voice came from outside the door. I don't think it is necessary. Shimo's old face collapsed and looked at the door.
The familiar pink pattern Haori appeared in front of you.
Why should we discuss such a good thing? Kyōraku Shunsui sat cross-legged beside the two of them, unceremoniously poured himself a glass of Liushan wine, and took a sip. Allah Yalla, a high-quality Luhun wine, rare. My husband, I toast you a glass. Shiba Eisen was stunned for a moment, then reacted immediately and laughed. Haha, drink and drink. Ever since, two old and disrespectful guys began to discuss how to persecute their juniors. I think you have to respect the opinions of the parties. Shimo tried to redeem his own power, however. Kyōraku Shunsui waved his hand and said, this is unnecessary. For the sake of the revitalization of the family, this matter should be decided by the head of the family. Advertisement. Although Captain Eisen is just the owner of the branch house, he can exercise power when necessary. The development of the matter gradually deviated from Shimo's expectations. He touched his chin, thinking since when did the painting style gradually begin to collapse? But to his surprise, Shiba Kong did not amputate his right arm due to some accident. In the photo, Shiba Sorasuru smiled brightly, and his clothes were embroidered with the Uzumaki pattern, proving his Shiba's identity. There is a tattoo with the word, empty, on the left arm, but it also adds a bit of different color to it. Shiba's name is very distinctive. Usually they use animals to name themselves. Like Kaien, the empty crane, the Yan in the rock curse, the crane, the curse. This symbolizes their family's philosophy of being close to nature at the same time. It is also intentional to think of emptiness. In addition, their names also represent their capabilities. Shiba Kaien's Zanpakutō is called Hama, and after Shikai, it is a water-based Kido Zanpakutō with extremely rare abilities. Although the Lancer was lucky since ancient times, Shimo's intervention also caused Shiba Kaien's luck to be slightly reversed. Shiba Kongi's ability is a firework master, and the Grand Master above Kido is also an attribute corresponding to the sky.
As for Shiba's abilities, Shiba's name already speaks for itself. Shimo has never underestimated any of the five nobles. Although the Shiba family has fallen, its main family hall holds the way to the Spirit King Palace, and it also occupies a pivotal position in the Soul Society. But the daughter-in-law who came here, Shimo looked at the photo on the table, quite tangled. Do I want it, or do I want it? Because Ku is the leader of Gode 13,
Kyōraku Shunsui and Shiba Eisen are also familiar with each other.
And the two have also been to an izakaya to drink together, and they have a good relationship.
As the conversation progressed, they also changed from the titles of Captain Kyōraku and Captain Shiba to in-laws. Before Shiba Eisen left, it was agreed to let Shimo go to Shiba's house at the end of this month. Although he tried his best to resist, Kyōraku Shunsui couldn't stop Kyōraku Shunsui from using the authority of the head of the house.
Shimo sighed, helpless. However, Kyōraku Shunsui had already seen the essence through the surface. He said with some disdain, "The prince kid don't get cheap and sell well.
Such good deeds are delivered to your door. I think your heart has blossomed, right? Rukongai, run Genranin district." Shizai looked at the Chisa building in front of her, and felt a sense of ominousness in her heart. Did I promise to be too sloppy? There seems to be some raw materials on the rudimentary house. Behind the house, a huge chimney stands, and it is also sealed by the Kido mantra. On both sides of the house, there are huge stone carving arms. The stone carving arms were bent over the roof, pulling a wide banner. Shiba Kaien's name is written on the banner. Considering that the current patriarch is Shiba Kaien, Shimo doesn't have that many doubts in his heart. This banner should be related to the person who is the head of the family. Now, it's useless to go back. What's more, Shimo looked to his side with a sullen face. By the way, stupid Ogi-san, why are you coming with you?
Kyōraku Shunsui placed his palm on his forehead, looking out, and dragged it in the direction of Shiba's house. He said without looking back, "As your only elder, I naturally want to follow."
Marriage between nobles is not a trifling matter.
Hearing this, Shimo suddenly had a black line. What can you say?
This matter is clearly decided in a few words. Are you really disregarding your skin? Shimo sighed and then strode towards Shiba's house. You considering that the current patriarch is Shiba Kaien, Shimo doesn't have that many doubts in his heart. This banner should be related to the person who is the head of the family. Now, it is useless to go back. What's more, Shimo looked to his side with a sullen face. By the way, stupid Ogi-san, why are you coming with you? Kyōraku Shunsui placed his palm on his forehead, looking out, and dragged it in the direction of Shiba's house. He said without looking back, "As your only elder, I naturally want to follow." Marriage between nobles is not a trifling matter.
Hearing this, Shimo suddenly had a black line. What can you say?
This matter is clearly decided in a few words. Are you really disregarding your skin? Shimo sighed and then strode towards Shiba's house. Chapter 87 Shiba Sora's Decision, The Black Belly Yunohana Retsu. Advertisement at Shiba's house. When Shimo walked to the vicinity of the Chisa building, he suddenly heard a hearty laughter from it. Ha ha ha. Of course I didn't even see it. By the way, the one called Shimo, should he come today? The voice fell, and the door in front of me was suddenly opened, and a woman who looked like an imperial sister walked out of it. Her long black hair was wrapped in a self-colored headscarf, and a refreshing smile hung on her delicate face. On the slender left arm, the word, empty, is tattooed in black. All the characteristics show his identity. Shiba Sky Crane. Error. You are? A hint of surprise appeared on Shiba Kongi's face, a familiar face. Obviously I have never seen it before. With that said, Shiba Kong wandered around Shimo. After looking up and down, she suddenly wiped her fist with her right hand and knocked it on the palm of her left hand, revealing a look of enlightenment. You are my fiancé, Kyōraku Shimo? Shimo looked surprised. Although I know that Shiba Sora is extremely heroic and enthusiastic. But it's not so enthusiastic, right? As for why she can recognize herself, it's because when Shiba Eisen left Kyōraku's house. I asked Kyōraku Shunsui for a photo of Shimo, but because Shimo himself doesn't like taking pictures, he only has pictures from when he was a child. This is why Shiba Kong was only familiar with Shimo when he saw Shimo, but he couldn't immediately recognize it. I think you look much better than when you were a kid. Shiba Kuzuru looked familiar, stretched out his hand directly on Shimo, and walked towards Shiba's house. Captain Kyōraku, let's come together. Halfway through, Shiba Kong only remembered that there was another person behind Shimo. This kind of bold personality makes people feel interesting. Perhaps this is the three views following the five senses? Unlike other nobles, Shiba's house does not have all kinds of precious decorations, and some are just minimalist styles. Except for the emblem of the Shiba family, almost no objects with decorative significance can be seen. Big brother, before reaching the main house, Shiba Sora's voice has passed. The head of Kyōraku has arrived. As soon as the 810 tone fell, Shiba Kaien hurriedly walked out of the main house. Captain Kyōraku, Shimo-kun. It's still a smile that is sunny enough to infect others. Shiba Kaien seemed to have come out of the sadness of the past. Kaien-kun. The other party gave it respect. Shimo also gave the same name. Respect is given to each other. Where is Eisen? Kyōraku Shunsui asked. Shiba Kaien responded with an apologetic smile, because considering that you were coming today, my uncle went to the izakaya to buy ryusol. Unlike other nobles, Shiba's people don't seem to have the so-called aristocratic airs at all. The four people sat down around the vermilion table. Shiba Kaien talked with Kyōraku Shunsui. In addition to talking about some interesting things that happened in the squad, it was more about the secrets between the nobles. Shimo is staring at each other with Shiba Sora. Although this guy's eyes would occasionally look down involuntarily, Shiba Sora Suru on the opposite side seemed flat and didn't care about it. Not long after, Shiba Eisen returned from the outside with a monthly special Luvun wine in his hand. Although this kind of wine is not as scarce as Kuchiki's special sake, it is also an extremely rare luxury among Rukongai. Shimo, I didn't lie to you, did I? Shiba Eisen sat beside Shimo ruthlessly, bumped him with his shoulder, and squeezed. How is it? How are you thinking about it? Shiba Sora Suru stretched out his hand to move the hanging hair, stroked it behind his ear, and smiled at Shimo. Shimo seriously considered this. As a man, this kind of request would logically not be rejected. However, I still hope to respect Miss Konghi's own decision. Not only that, you must know about Rukia Kuchiki. Facing the temptation, Shimo decided to get out. Although he is happy, he still has to take care of the feelings of others. Advertisement. He is not the kind of person who must occupy when he sees beautiful things. It's like bee flowers in a flower garden. If you have to take it off for your own viewing, does it seem too overbearing? The reason is very simple, but there are few that can be done. Shimo is very thankful that he can abide by his heart. However, Shiba Eisen's reaction was beyond his expectation. Haha, I mentioned this matter to Shao Kong a long time ago. We will not force our family to talk to someone she doesn't like. All things will be decided by you young people. Shimo looked at Shiba Sora, only to find that she was still staring at herself. But the look in his eyes is different from just now. I saw him smiling and saying calmly, I'm very fortunate to be honest with you in front of people you first met. As for marriage, maybe we can try to cultivate feelings? The last sentence is an interrogative sentence. Shimo asked subconsciously, how to cultivate. Eisen and I submitted an application for Shao Kong to join Captain Eggflower yesterday. If nothing happens, Shao Kong will become a member of the 4th Division. Kyōraku Shunsui talked to the side. Hearing that, Shimo faintly leached cold sweat on his forehead. Sister Wa didn't cut you down. Kyōraku Shunsui looked surprised. What is this? Do I, as the captain of the 8th Division, have no face at all? Even if Captain Ujiwa had a history, she has converged too much now. Don't worry, Captain Eggflower will agree. Shiba Eisen also explained. Shao Konghi's accomplishments on Kido are also quite high. Even if Kaien compares, it's not as good. Shiba Kaien scratched his head and said with some shame. It's true. On Kido, Kong has always had a very high talent. After speaking out this time, I didn't figure out the point of the matter at all. Shimo sighed, with a hunch that the future 4th Division will become a terrifying Shura field. I hope I can survive their confrontation smoothly. The 4th Division. Sister Wa, this is, Shimo hesitated and didn't know how to introduce Shiba Sora Suru next to Yunohana Retsu. After leaving Shiba's house, Shiba Sora Suru followed Shimo and the others to the Yuling Palace. Concerned about the lifespan of the soul, the parents of both sides are not in a hurry for this. Fortunately, just as Shiba Sora Suru said, let's slowly cultivate the feelings first. Therefore, Shimo directly brought Shiba Kongzuru to the 4th Division. Fiancé. Shiba Kong admitted quickly she doesn't feel bad about Shimo. On the contrary, because of her behavior and opinions, she has a good impression on the contrary. Shimo first saved Shiba Kaien's life through information. She is more willing to respect her own choice in emotional matters. Regarding this, Shiba Kong didn't say anything, but he already admitted Shimo's identity in his heart. Hearing the words, Eggflower lie, a smile gradually appeared on her calm and unwavering face. In the originally warm office of the captain, I don't know why a little coldness suddenly appeared. A member of the Shiba family. Egg no Huali smiled and said. It seems that the person mentioned in the letter of recommendation from Captain Kyōraku and Captain Shiba is you. Fang Bakong. He is keenly aware that things seem flat and not as simple as she imagined. The captain of the 4th Division in front of him, the legend of Soul Society, 1st generation Kenpachi Yunohana Retsu, seems to have an inexplicable letter to the man he is in. Because of family records, Shiba Kong knows some secrets quite well. In any case, the Shiba family is also one of the 5 nobles of Soul Society, although it is now declining. Well, that's right. Shiba Sora Suru suddenly stretched out his hand to wrap Shimo's arm in his arms. His expression became arrogant, as if announcing that this was her possession. Shimo rubbed his nose and quietly became a wooden man. Although the sensation of soft fragrance is close at hand, under the gaze of Yan Jawali's gradually dangerous eyes, he felt that being a wooden person was the most correct choice. But I have to mention that the feeling on the arm is really good. Although you were recommended by 2 captains, advertisement. Eggflower smiled violently, but we still have to start from the bottom of the squad. From tomorrow, you can go to the General Rescue Center to help. Shiba Kong looked surprised and asked, how come there are such rules? Shouldn't the new players have the option of joining the team and taking the place? Eggflower Lai turned her head and smiled. Because I'm the captain of the 4th Division, so the rules are up to me. In addition, if you want to participate in the team assessment, then I will be responsible for the assessment task. Hearing this, Shiba Kong took a breath, hiss.
I suddenly felt that starting from the bottom is also a good thing.
Life and death, she decisively chose the former. For the assessment task undertaken by first-generation Kenpachi, Shiba Kong doesn't think he can survive smoothly. What's more, this seemingly gentle woman has inexplicable hostility towards herself. The source of hostility is obviously an inseparable relationship with the man he embraces. However, this also made Shiba Kong a new question. Why is Shimo so popular? Eghuali kept smiling and nodded. Well, you can go directly to Yongyan to report at that time. She will help you solve your identity and mission issues. After saying this, Unohana Retsu cast her gaze on Shimo. Shimo-kun, I haven't tried it in a long time. It just happens that my current official duties have been completed. Why don't we go to the training ground number 4? Hearing this, Shiba Kong was vigilant in his heart, and the arm that embraced Shimo tightened subconsciously, and asked. What are you going to do at the training ground?
Shimo sighed and said helplessly. Sister Wa, when you say this, do you write the last word on the document? Also, didn't we just try it yesterday? Eghuali did not speak, and even his expression did not change. But the temperature in the room suddenly dropped a few degrees. The 4th Division, the 4th Training Ground. A building like a gymnasium, standing in front of the 3. Under Shiba Sora's strong suggestion, Shimo brought her over. Entering the gymnasium, Shimo and Unohana Retsu each took the wooden sword on the side stand. Considering that the use of Zanpakutō for test communication will cause great damage, they always use wooden swords in their daily kendo competitions. Eghuali, holding a wooden sword, is different from his usual calm posture. At this time, she has a sharp sword intent on her body, which gives people a strange sense of beauty.
Shimo-kun, as usual, try your best to please me. A vague cold sweat slipped off Shimo's forehead. Is this the Sister Wa with a black belly? The complex information contained in this word and sentence is enough to make a mature old driver feel ashamed. I'm on it first. The voice of the egg flower fell, the wooden sword in his hand was lifted, and the figure disappeared in place. Ding! It was supposed to be a dull sound of wood collision, but under the blessing of the two sword intents, there was a sound of gold and iron collision. As the speed of the egg flower fierce slash increased, bursts of sonic booms broke out. The sword goes slant, Shimo's slashing speed is also violent, hesitating about the storm. The fight between the two does not contain any ryatsu. However, the power of its sword intent is impossible to approach at all. Shiba Kong looked at the scene before him in amazement and muttered. Is Shimo so strong? Why did the elder brother never mention this matter? 1. The infinite power of kendo. The skyrocketing sword intent clashes with the wooden sword in Shimo's hand, and its slashing speed has once again risen by a notch. Flash flower. Assisted by special shunpo skills, merge into new sword moves. Click. The sound of shattering sounded between the collision of the wooden swords. Competition, over, Chapter 88 The long-lost check in task, the 11th Division. Advertisement Eghuali looked at the wooden sword with a broken hand. It's just a day after that. However, Shimo's wooden sword is also broken at the same time, there is not much time difference between the two. It looks like it's a tie again. Shimo raised the broken wooden sword in his hand and said with a smile. Hearing the words, the flower of the egg was surprised, and immediately smiled softly. Swordsmanship is divided into victory and defeat. How can there be a tie? Everyone's understanding of kendo is different. If you win, you don't need to care about how I feel. When Shiba Kong on the side saw this, he did not know where he took out a small notebook and recorded on it. From time to time, he raised his head and suddenly came out with an enlightened look. I see. After tidying up the broken wooden sword, Shimo walked up to him and curiously said. What are you writing? Shiba Kong spread out the little book in his hand. Shimo looked over curiously and subconsciously read the sound. Shimo's favorite type, gentle and elder sister type, can converge his movements and personality on weekdays. Try to keep up with Captain Eggflower. There is a paragraph later. Shimo will not have time to finish it in the future. However, I felt the temperature in the number 4 training ground suddenly dropped to freezing point. Eghuali's movements suddenly froze in place. Shimo, who realized that something was wrong, backhanded Shiba Sora's white hand. Run! The terrifying ryatsu from first-generation Kenpachi instantly flooded the entire training ground. Fortunately, Shimo was already far away from that dangerous place when ryatsu completely broke out. Shimo, who returned to the 6th team building, just breathed a sigh of relief. Why do you record, that kind of content in your notebook? At this moment, the doubts in his heart will come out. Shiba Kong laughed loudly. Haha, does this still require thinking? Of course I want to be the person you like. At this time, Shimo realized that Shiba Sora Suru had a different personality from the others. The original heroic character, even in expressing emotions, is the same. Shiba Kong is a person with a firm character, she won't be subdued by a bit of setbacks. Especially when I noticed that the attitude towards Shimo is different. She was vigilant in her heart. How could the fiancé who was finally found easily let it to others? What do you do? The next day, Shimo saw that he rushed towards the comprehensive ambulance, and if he left it, he would definitely come back. Straight is the character who dares to love and hate. The new check-in task has been released. Please host the check-in and check-in in the 11th Division and play against Zaraki Kenpachi. Close black lens bracket. Task reward. Shikai's second ability. After Shimo watched Shiba Kong leave, he suddenly heard a long-lost system prompt. The content of the task is not to be blamed, he is a little worried. What kind of punch-in task is this? Go to the 11th Division to check in, and you have to fight Zaraki Kenpachi. Shimo's daylight flickered, thinking carefully, but 3 minutes later, he decisively gave up this move. It's not a player who feeds on his brain. What brain cells are wasted? In any case, the clock-in task is to be completed, the second ability after Shikai. Shimo recalled the first ability, and he had a little reverie in his heart, not knowing what the reward would be this time. But to go to the 11th Division, always find a suitable reason. He is thinking about related matters in the team house. The deputy squad leader of the 6th class, Yusuke Kashima, once again knocked on the door of the Shimo team house. Master Shimo, the 11th Division needs you over there. Shimo opened the door, a little excited. What happened to the 11th Division? It is said that a new team member has joined the team, launched a side-by-side battle. Then Madarei Mikaku was repaired miserably and seriously injured. Kashima Yusuke doesn't seem to know the specific situation either. He was just in charge of spreading the word. In fact, under Shimo's special training, the 6th ambulance squad of the 4th squad has gradually deviated from that of the 4th squad. As a backup force, their combat effectiveness is not weaker than the elite troops of the 11th Division. Although it is not as good as the seat officer, but in terms of combat effectiveness, it is not weaker than any team member. Can you imagine a group of madmen with fanatical expressions, Kaido with their left hand and Zanpakutō with their right hand looking at you? This is how the 6th squad fights, but this is not yet up to Shimo's satisfaction. Advertisement. His goal is to train these players into Ronkar's resilience with high-speed regeneration. If you can, because the captain is out, Yongyun's 3 seats still need to sit in the comprehensive ambulance. Kashima Yusuke explained, so I came to report to Lord Shimo. In that case, let's go. Shimo tightened the girdle around his waist, held Zanpakutō in his hand, and activated Shunpo. Whether it's for the check-in task or for the poor new member of the 11th Division. He feels he needs to hurry up. Kashima Yusuke rubbed his eyes, say. Where is Lord Shimo? With the increase of muscles, this initial introverted team player has obviously abandoned his mind. From the perspective of Class 6, the fist is much easier to use than the head. The 11th Division. The team house structure here is much simpler than other teams. In addition to the spacious training grounds, there is also a competition platform in the team house. Because considering the players of the 11th Division, there is hardly any good Aikido. Their competition platform was also stabilized by the 12th Squadron with spirit tools. You only need to pour Ryotsu into it to form Aikido enchantment, which can be used to block the Ryotsu destruction that occurs in it. When Shimo rushed to the 11th squad, there was overflowing bloodline on the competition stage. The two stood facing each other, one of them being Madarei Mikaku. The bald head, the muscles of the nipple knots are full of scars, and the blood is constantly oozing from it. The guy who stood opposite to him was actually one of his acquaintances. His red hair was hanging down, and his face had a strange black tattoo. Abarai Renji. Shimo was a little surprised. He didn't expect that Abarai Renji had already been dispatched to the 11th Division by Aizen. This guy is a thorn in his head because he doesn't accept discipline, and he always completes tasks according to his own ideas. It also caused Aizen to feel that he was not in control, and sent him out of the 5th Division. But Shimo didn't expect that the first thing he did when he came to the 11th Division was to fight for the seat. It seems that this guy's confidence has expanded a lot because of the increase in strength. Do you think it's not good for you to find another seat officer? This one will challenge 3 seats, isn't this done? Abarai Renji inserted Zabumaru on the martial arts stage, panting heavily, blood dripping from his cheeks, and the whole person looked very poor and miserable. I actually lost again in the hands of others. Abarai Renji was breathing very fast, and his consciousness gradually began to blur. At this time, he was supported by the trace of faith in his heart. Little devil, your will has won my uncle's approval. This is the end. Madarei Mikaku grinned and grinned fiercely. After this seizing battle, I will give you more opportunities to challenge. As long as you can defeat me, you can become the 3rd officer of the 11th Division. And have the qualification to challenge Captain Zaraki. Hearing this, a smile appeared on Abarai Renji's face. I finally got the approval of others' comment. The relaxation of his will caused him to fall directly on the competition stage, and Zabumaru was restored to the sealed state. As for Madarei Mikaku, he still looks radiant. Although there are many injuries on his body, most of them are skin injuries, which have no major impact at all. Bullying the newcomer. Shimo had some speedy voices from under the martial arts stage, very prestigious, a corner. Hearing that, Madarei Mikaku was still thinking about having a seizure, but when he saw the speaker, he suddenly stopped. Oh, who I thought it was. So it's you again. Shimo raised his brows and said. Do you treat your savior with this attitude? As soon as these words came out, Madarame Mikaku's old face suddenly stretched out. Ah, you fellow, mention that thing again. Seeking flowers oh. Sooner or later he struggled for a long time and didn't figure out how to deal with it. Sooner or later let you save me again, will it always be? Shimo tuned. Move the fellow jest down. If you lose too much blood and die, you won't be able to explain it. Madarame Mikaku picked up Abarai Renji's belt and put it on his shoulder. Put it in the emergency room. Shimo said. Considering that the 11th squad is frequently injured, and the injury sometimes affects its walking, like Abarai Renji's state. So Shimo proposed to build an ambulance room in the 11th squad, leaving the 4th squad crew to be on duty. Advertisement if necessary, you can inform the 4th division through Kido and request support. This is why the battle just ended when Shimo arrived. The light of the question envelops Abarai Renji. Shimo glanced at him and realized that Madarame Mikaku beside him was injured. Ever since, Kaido's light spread, and he was treated with him easily. Shimo's level of Kido at this time is not weaker than that of contemporary Big Kido. Except for Kido and Forbidden Technique Kido that have not been touched for the time being, other Kido are familiar with. The level of Kaido naturally rises with the tide. Just when the treatment was about to be completed, a rough and hoarse voice came from behind. Finally waiting for you. Let's have a fun fight. Shimo turned his head, but saw Zaraki Kenpachi carrying Zanpakutō, standing behind him. The expression on his face is full of longing for fighting. The Captain Haori, who has a jagged edge, embodies his character to the fullest. Nozarashi has been unsheathed, shining with a dazzling cold light. Little Mo. Kusajishi Yachiru suddenly stuck his head out of Zaraki Kenpachi's shoulder and said excitedly. You have to be careful. Xiaojian is very happy today. Definitely, must survive. Facing the provocation, Shimo's mouth showed a smile. Yachinlu, how do you know I will lose? When the voice fell, Ling Ran's sword intent and murderous aura emerged, blooming with Shimo as the center. Like hell Shira, burst out an endless sense of oppression. Madarame Mikaku, the nearest to him, couldn't help but breathe a sigh of relief as he felt the pressure. Broken. Is Shimo a monster? How long has this been, and how has your strength grown so famous? The words seemed to be squeezed out between the teeth. Under the pressure of this momentum, he was a little harder to speak.
All the team members, leave the team building. Yu Shukawa, who watched the game from the sidelines, realized that something was wrong and hurriedly evacuated the team members.
The battle is unavoidable at this time, and the loss can only be minimized as much as possible. Madarame Mikaku backhanded Abarai Renji, who was frowning on the ground, on his shoulders again, and started Shunpo away from here. Soon, the 11th Division team house became empty. Shatter. Zaraki Kenpachi stretched his arms. Zanpakutō pointed directly at Shimo, grinning. Come on, let's have a pleasant battle. I have been looking for you. Shimo's smile narrowed. Zuo-Qian pressed on Zanpakutō, thumb nudged. Click. He didn't say a word, he was just showing his determination with actions. The cold light blooms between the thumbs, reflecting everyone's soul. The golden Ryatsu, centered on Zaraki Kenpachi, keeps gathering. The surrounding space seemed to be trembling. The building trembles, the gravel on the ground trembles, and the momentum is constantly rising. Shimo also released his Ryatsu at this time. After discussing for a period of practice, he was already able to pressure the master soaringly. Condensed blood-red Ryatsu, condensed all over the body, colliding with Zaraki Kenpachi's golden Ryatsu, thinking that there is an oppressive force around him. Ha ha. Zaraki Kenpachi laughed wildly, a strong enough opponent. He mentioned Nozarashi and launched the attack first. Boom. At the moment when the two Zanpakutō crossed together, with them as the center, a shockwave of terror instantly permeated the entire 11th Division. Countless buildings collapsed, Ryatsu raged, 0. The building trembles, the gravel on the ground trembles, and the momentum is constantly rising. Shimo also released his Ryatsu at this time. After discussing for a period of practice, he was already able to pressure the master soaringly. Condensed blood-red Ryatsu, condensed all over the body, colliding with Zaraki Kenpachi's golden Ryatsu, thinking that there is an oppressive force around him. Ha ha. Zaraki Kenpachi laughed wildly, a strong enough opponent. He mentioned Nozarashi and launched the attack first. Boom. At the moment when the two Zanpakutō intersected, with them as the center, a shockwave of terror instantly permeated the entire 11th Division. Countless buildings collapsed, Ryatsu raged, 0. Chapter 89 Play against Zaraki Kenpachi, Advertisement. In the stagnant palace, a rapid alarm sounded instantly. The major teams also moved quickly, first level alert. The 11th Division team house broke out 2 captain-level Ryatsu. Several captains, after realizing this incident, realized that the situation was not right, and immediately proceeded to the 11th squad. The battle between Shimo and Kenpachi has just begun. On the staggered Zanpakutō, red and gold Ryatsu are entangled, biting, like a living thing. The excitement in Kenpachi Shigeki's eyes became more intense. He felt that Shimo in front of him was the same type of person. Although he was trying his best to suppress his desire to fight, once he entered a fighting state, he couldn't suppress it anymore. When the body is driven by the instinct of the heart, fighting becomes the norm in life. To combat, rationality is like a sword with a sheath. Who can be beaten by it? Only instinct is the only way to make the battle to victory. Frenzy does not have the slightest slashing attack, like a madman, slashing towards Shimo one after another.
If thunder and lightning are as rapid as violent, if rainstorm is as rapid. The chaotic golden Reiatsu gradually occupied the surrounding space. That's the only thing you can do. As Zaraki Kenpachi gradually entered a state of battle, Zaraki Kenpachi's tone became more and more arrogant.
Too weak, too weak. Thousands of arms waving, as if lifting a heavy hammer, hit Shimo's Zanpakutō.
The rumbling sound is endless. This kind of head-to-head battle has always been what Zaraki Kenpachi is thirsty for.
Facing a slash like a madman, Shimo did not retreat but moved forward, and the red Reiatsu wrapped around him. Like countless blood-red little snakes, spreading around it, constantly biting the golden Reiatsu shrouded next to it.
Kendo haha. Shimo's figure is slightly low. Zanpakutō suddenly retracts into the scabbard around his waist.
The brilliant sword light, like a blood moon, blooms in Shimo's hands. Faced with the sudden sword attack, Zaraki Kenpachi was shocked, and then a cruel smile appeared on his face. Huh, this is decent. The sturdy Chizen swung his speed unabated, and directly ran into the blood-red sword light that Shimo had slashed out. Pouting, like a fountain, the surrounding dust is soaked with blood splashing around. Your slash is too slow. Shimo's eyes were like a knife, and he pierced into Zaraki Kenpachi's consciousness fiercely. The best way to face beasts is to tame them. The battle has just begun. Zaraki Kenpachi didn't care about the injuries on his body, which in turn inspired his ferocity even more. The pain in the wound continuously stimulated his nerves, making his movements more rapid. Mouth, however, this style of play without chapters cannot cause damage to Shimo at all. Although Zaraki Kenpachi's strength is strong enough, there is no objection to the miss. And as the wounds on his body increased, he became more and more excited. So funny, boom. Another shock came in the center of the collision of two Zanpakutō. The ground within a few miles sank suddenly. The ruins of the 11th Division team house once again withstood an impact. The 11th Division team members who were onlookers in the distance finally realized one thing at this time. By the way, we don't seem to have a place to live anymore. Is Deputy Captain Shimo so strong? Can he fight Captain Zaraki to such an extent? How does this kid's strength cultivate? The gap is getting bigger and bigger. It's really exciting. At this time, the captains of the other squads are long overdue. In the ruins, two constantly intertwined figures, as well as the raging Reiatsu, destroyed everything around. Can anyone tell me what happened? Kyōraku Shunsui was surprised, with a surprised expression. He couldn't understand the scene before him at all. Didn't Shimo play well in the 4th Division? In order to keep his heart at ease, I even found him a fiancé, but why did I suddenly start fighting with Zaraki now? Captain Kyōraku. Madarame Makaku's voice came from the crowd. Although the surrounding environment is noisy, Kyōraku Shunsui found the dazzling bald head in the crowd at a glance. Although his body is seriously injured, his bald head is still dazzling and eye-catching. Advertisement: Shimo came to help the team member for treatment, and then ran into the captain who came back suddenly. The character of the captain wants to come to Captain Kyōraku better than me. The moment Shimo Reiatsu was sensed, the battle was unavoidable. After listening, Kyōraku Shunsui stroked his chin and thought. In other words, this battle was completely provoked by Zaraki himself? Madarame Makaku hesitated slightly and nodded. Kyōraku Shunsui let out a sigh of relief. That's good. In this way, Zaraki only needs to serve his sentence. Shimo is completely passive. Madarame Makaku was surprised and shouted. But, the 11th Division's team house was completely destroyed because of the battle between the two of them. Kyōraku Shunsui's face sank. The aura from the veteran captain was immediately released. Could it be that Shimo was wrong? Madarame Makaku just remembered the difference in strength and status between himself and the opponent. What a pleasing battle. Ovage Huali puts her right hand on the hair braid in front of her, and her left hand rubs the scabbard on her waist tightly. His eyes are full of urges to try, ahem, Captain Eggflower. Kyōraku Shunsui realized that something was wrong, and hurriedly persuaded him. I think this situation has already messed up Lingting enough. It's better for us to swoop around and wait for the end of the battle between the two. He is very clear about the identity of Yunohana Retsu if she is involved in it. That state of affairs has developed in an uncontrollable direction. At that time, according to the decadent rules of Central 46. Come to think of it, Shimo can't escape punishment. Eggflower Ray watched the battle in the field intently. For a long time, he smiled and said. I understand the importance of things, please don't worry, Captain Kyōraku. Upon hearing this, Kyōraku Shunsui breathed a sigh of relief. It's good to understand, it's good to understand. When the conversation between the two of them was over, Shattered B, Ichimaru Jin, Eisen, Byakuya Kuchiki and others arrived. Entering the eye, there is a piece of kanji ruins in front of him. Yeah. What a spectacular battle scene. When Ichimaru Jin speaks, he is always the coolest one. I didn't expect Deputy Captain Shimo to have such a strong strength. Shimo-kun's performance was indeed unexpected. Aizen has a gentle smile, always looks like a nice guy. Isn't it time to stop the fighting between the two? Broken B's expression was a bit anxious, and he had the urge to intervene. Captain Broken B, wait a minute, cough. Jashiro Yukitaki was so alarmed by Ryotsu, he also dragged his sick body to rush here. The fighting between the two has entered a heated state. Ahem, if we intervene at this time, we will also become the target of their attack. At that time, the scale of the battle will expand, which will cause more serious damage to Yulingting. Kyōraku Shunsui talked to the side, that's right, little broken stick. Let's wait until their battle is over. We can now build a Kido enchantment around the 11th Division team house to avoid the subsequent effects of the battle. Afterwards, everyone scattered around the 11th Division team house. With the chanting of the dancing mantra, the huge enchantment instantly enveloped it. The battle is progressing in a more intense direction. However, Zaraki Kenpachi was bruised and bloodied. It is in sharp contrast with the spotless Shimo. After the captains realized this, their expressions became a little weird. Shimo's strength is a bit beyond the old man's imagination. Kyōraku Shunsui touched the dense Hujien on his chin, frowning. Originally, he just thought that Shimo's Ryotsu was powerful. But now, Shimo has proved to him with facts that he is not only relying on Ryotsu. Exquisite kendo skills and weird shunpo skills make it easy to dodge all attacks in the stormy attack of Zaraki Kenpachi. What an accident. Zaraki Kenpachi is scarred, but his vigor is unabated. Advertisement Shimo actually wants to know what kind of race this guy is. His own potential is so powerful, it seems that you must untie the shackles before you can really fight. I saw him take off the blindfold on his face, and a grinning smile appeared on his face. The fight is just beginning. The voice fell, and the golden Ryotsu skyrocketed like a huge beam of light, devouring everything around. The dazzling light instantly enveloped Shimo in it. Oh, Ichimaru Jin held his hands in his arms, grinned at the corners of his mouth, and said inexplicably. Captain Zaraki unexpectedly unchained himself. Shimo-kun is a bit dangerous. Hearing that, Broken B subconsciously glared at Ichimaru Jin, gritted his teeth and said. You'd better put away that defiant posture, Shimo, absolutely nothing, no danger. As she spoke, Shattered B suddenly noticed, and the surrounding captains turned their attention to her. Her face turned red, and she realized that something was wrong, and her voice gradually became smaller. Kyōraku Shunsui's eyes became somewhat meaningful. Eghuali's eyelids are slightly downward from an uncheckable angle, as if hiding something. In the Electric Road enchantment, when Shimo was swallowed by the golden Ryotsu beam, he released all his Ryotsu. The blood-red color wraps around it, protecting it firmly. Come on, keep fighting. So funny, Zaraki Kenpachi, who is free from the shackles of the blindfold, has once again reached a new level of Ryotsu level. As if regaining a new life, he returned to his peak state. The blood splattered everywhere, as if it had nothing to do with it. Ding, ding, ding. Zanpakutō's constantly intertwined sounds, like a magnificent symphony, proceed in the Kido enchantment. Shimo's expression also changed slightly. He has been fighting against Ryotsu with kendo, making him somewhat unable to suppress his own power. Shikai, it's about to move. I really want to use all my strength. A trace of desire flashed in Shimo's eyes, but this desire was immediately suppressed by it. If you want to win the battle right now, you don't need to use all your power. For the future layout, it is better to bear with one hand for the time being. As Zaraki Kenpachi's interest continued to rise, he changed his sword style. From the original single thousand holding sword, to holding Nozarashi's hilt with both hands 0.0. Yamamoto once wanted to teach Zaraki Kenpachi, but he didn't want it to continue to grow stronger. Unsurprisingly, Zaraki Kenpachi has just learned kendo for a day, but he gave up the idea of continuing to learn. However, he still learned a sword technique from Yamamoto Genryuze. Kendo. 2 breaks. There is no bit of skill in kendo. The golden Ryotsu of Zaraki Kenpachi's whole body instantly gathered on Nozarashi. Like a giant axe, he slashed down towards Shimo, as if to crush it with Ryotsu. Shimo's gaze was Ling-ran, and the sword intent raged through it. He gathered the thinness around his waist in a gesture of raising the sword. The blood-red Ryotsu gathered on the blade, just like Shikai. Kendo. Infinite power. There are no fixed sword moves. Yes, it's just the comprehension that comes from the meaning of promise. Shaoyan vs Nozarashi. The frantic golden and red Ryotsu finally broke out at this moment. The force of horror is constantly impacting the surrounding Kido enchantment. Kyōraku Shunsui's face changed slightly, and he stepped forward and pressed against the Kido enchantment, shouting. The Kido enchantment can't hold on. Other team leaders also moved to the side of the enchantment and placed their hands on it, providing Ryotsu supplies to the Kido enchantment to prevent the impact from destroying the enchantment and causing greater damage to the Yuling court. In the enchantment, the two regiments of Ryotsu fought in it, as if thousands of troops were constantly fighting. What is surprising is that the seemingly peaceful chaos has different forces flowing through it, changing the situation. Chapter 90 Shimo's sentence, Shiba Eisen is missing. Advertisement Egg Flower violently moved, and seemed to realize what this special force was. She who often competes with Shimo in kendo, she knows best. In terms of time, this is the sword intent called Wuji. Endless, all-encompassing, is promise. Perhaps there is a deeper meaning, but Yanjiwali thinks that this level of understanding is enough. The depth of the matter is not something she can explore now. Are you going to tell the winner? There seemed to be a little nervousness in the voice of Broken Bee.
Egg Huili gave the 2nd Division captain a little unexpectedly, then smiled and said.
If there is no accident, after Ryotsu's entanglement is over, you will be able to know the result of the battle. There was a hint of joy in Broken Bee's tone. That couldn't be better. Maintaining this Kido enchantment is a very tiring thing. There are still many urgent tasks on the 2nd Division, and I need to deal with them. The last two sentences are quite deceptive. Almost all of the captains on the field are at the level of the old fritters. How can they not see the change of mindset at this time? Boom, boom. Kido's enchantment is constantly being impacted, and damage is at least several times easier than protection. Therefore, under the blessing of Ryotsu of several captains, the Kido enchantment has been able to stand up till now. As time passed, the golden and red Ryotsu began to fade away. Like a sudden rain shower, it comes violently and goes quickly. Under the gaze of many eyes, the battle between the two finally came to an end. The blood-red Ryotsu raged in the barrier. With the blessing of Wuji Jieni, Shimo is firmly in the upper hand. But the scene in the enchantment is a bit miserable. Shimo and Zaraki Kenpachi, both lying on the ground praying in their clothes, are partially wounded. The blood ran down the bodies of the two of them, converging into a river. 14. The Kido barrier was lifted, and the captains immediately surrounded them. Boy, it's comfortable now, Kyōraku Shunsui gave Shimo angrily. Hey, I can't help it, Captain Zaraki's temperament, don't you know better than me? Shimo did not mean to blame Zaraki Kenpachi. In fact, it is true. If he hadn't deliberately joined the 11th Division, with Zaraki Kenpachi and Kusajishi Yachiru's idiots, it would be difficult to meet him in this life. Please disperse irrelevant personnel. Pa Shi Ben Column's tone is a bit cold. The wounded need to be treated immediately. Little sword, little sword. Kusajishi Yachiru didn't know when he also ran to Zaraki Kenpachi's side and smiled. Are you happy this time? Zaraki Kenpachi rolled his eyes, glanced at Shimo who was also lying on the ground not far away, and made an impenetrable sound. Oh, it's quite interesting, after all. He closed his eyes and stopped paying attention to the outside world. High-intensity fighting has also brought a great burden to his mind. The deep sleep after the battle is no less than the afternoon sleep. This is the perception of Zaraki Kenpachi when it was discovered that the two of them were not in danger. The other captains gradually dispersed. The scene will be temporarily handed over to Kojiwali. Although Broken Bee was a little bit reluctant, he still left forcibly. What she said before is not a lie. There are indeed many urgent tasks on the 2nd Division, waiting for her to deal with them. As for the ruins of the 11th Division, it can only be solved by the 11th Division. After all, it was the captain of the 11th Division that started this battle. Shimo can only be regarded as passively participating in the battle this time. Even if the punishment is issued, it will be very slight, not painful or itchy. Eggflower lay crouched to Shimo's side and checked his injuries. Shish. At the first glance of the observation, Eggflower Lie noticed something wrong. Shimo, she didn't continue speaking, but closed the conversation in time. Then Yanjiwali used Kaido for emergency treatment. Temporarily send the two wounded to the emergency room of the 4th Division. As for the rebuilding of the 11th Squad, I will leave it to Madara. Hearing this, a bald head rushed out of the crowd. But, Captain Eggflower, do you have any question? Aware of the sudden drop in the surrounding temperature, Madara Makaku swallowed the words from his mouth again. No more. Yachiru dragged his own Zanpakutō, looked at the crowd with a smile, and said. Everyone, come on, I'll take care of Shaojian. Immediately, the figure of Huan Tuo followed Unohana Retsu and left the 11th Division team building. Advertisement: the members of the 11th Division, looking at the ruins in front of them to the ruins of the team house, weeping without tears. In this case, even with the help of other squad members, it is estimated that it will not be completed for a while. Shimo was lying on the stretcher, looking up at the blue sky, feeling a moment of comfort in his heart. That's right, all the injuries on his body were caused by himself. Zaraki Kenpachi's Ryotsu is very strong, but he is a bit worse than him. As for Kendo, the difference is even greater, but in order to hide his strength, Shimo had to inflict the scars on himself after Ryotsu raged at the end of the battle. However, the Wuji sword intent remaining on it was recognized by Egg Huili at a glance. Fortunately, he was gentle and virtuous, and helped Shimo keep a secret in time. In addition, Zaraki Kenpachi, who was fighting with him, also realized this. However, looking at Shimo fighting with him, he didn't tell the truth. Of course, there are more possibilities because it is not interested in these. The only pleasure of Zaraki Kenpachi is to fight constantly and fight with the stronger ones. The appearance of Shimo made him realize that there are still many strong players in Gode 13. This made his somewhat extinguished fighting spirit reignited. The 4th Division. Comprehensive Ambulance. During Shimo's tenure as deputy captain, he visited the comprehensive rescue facility many times. But this is the first time I came here as a wounded. The members of the 4th Division looked at Shimo lying on the stretcher with a surprised expression. In their minds, the deputy captain, who exists in an invincible image, would actually be injured like this. However, after seeing Zaraki Kenpachi brought in later, the faces of everyone suddenly relaxed, so the opponent is Captain Zaraki. That's all right. Wait, Captain Zaraki? The eyes of countless members of the 4th Division team suddenly focused on the two of them. The deputy captain actually had a battle with Captain Zaraki of the 11th Division? It seems that the injury of the deputy captain is lighter. It is said that each of the 11th squadrons is extremely cruel, and I didn't expect the deputy captain to beat their captain. As a member of the logistics team, I think this kind of thing is too outrageous. Impatience appeared on Zaraki Kenpachi's face. He felt as if there were countless flies buzzing in his ears. The taste of defeat has only been fermented in his heart at this time. Little sword, it's okay. Kusajishi Yachiru seems to always be able to see through Zaraki Kenpachi's mind. We will surpass Xiaomo, smile innocently, as if there is no trouble forever. Zaraki Kenpachi was startled slightly, then closed his eyes and said solemnly. Trembling. I don't know if it's because of my own bad taste, or the ward in the comprehensive nursing home is really not enough. Yunohana Retsu put Shimo and Zaraki Kenpachi in the same ward. After Shiba Kong learned of this, he rushed to Shimo's ward as soon as possible. Shimo-kun. When he appeared anxiously in the ward, Shimo suddenly realized that although the other party has a heroic personality, it does not mean that Shiba Kong does not have the unique advantages of ordinary women. As the Shiba patriarch, Shiba Sora Suru obviously has many advantages. It's just his Tingmei's character that makes people ignorantly ignore these. When his hands touched Shimo's, Shiba Sora Suru noticed it. Shimo's injury was not as serious as she had imagined. Huh, scared me to death. Shiba Kong was obviously relieved. However, her next sentence was to make Shimo's feelings disappear suddenly. I thought that if I didn't pass the door, I was going to be widowed. Shimo. 2. Since you are okay, then I will interrupt you to rest. Jibo Konghee's face was filled with a cheerful smile again. Get a good rest and work hard to heal your injuries. I will be your assistant soon. With that, Shiba Kong bent over and lowered his body, and a bit of coolness was printed on Shimo's forehead. Looking at the white snow in front of him, Shimo felt his blood pressure surge. Fortunately, Shiba Kong left the ward in time. Shimo looked up at the white ceiling, recalling what happened just now, and the corners of his mouth rose slightly. Xiaomo. Soon after Shiba Kora left, Kusajishi Yachiru smiled and came to Shimo's hospital bed. Thank you for letting Xiaojian fight happily once. This is a gift for you. Kusajishi Yachiru stretched out his hands and Shimo turned his head to look. I saw her hands filled with Jinpingtang. By the way, Xiaojian asked me to give it away. Shimo froze for a moment and looked at the next hospital bed. Advertisement. Zaraki Kenpachi tilted his head and said angrily. Yachinryu, you are too trembling. Upon seeing this, Shimo smiled and took the Jinpingtang in his hand. As Kusajishi Yachiru's favorite dessert, Jinpingtang also represents the friendship between Zaraki Kenpachi and Kusajishi Yachiru. It was only after his interview with Yu Pingtang that the sound of the mechanical ship was gradually recognized. Check-in task is completed, rewards are being issued. Congratulations to host for acquiring Shikai's second ability, space cutting, close black lens bracket. By this time, Shimo had been certain. Although his own Zanpakutō sniff is a time Zanpakutō, you can gain the ability of the space system by completing the check-in task. From floating in space to cutting in space in the seemingly unremarkable ability, only he knows how great potential it contains. Ji Gon wants to obtain the ability of the time system only through his own efforts. The ladder of time in the Zanpakutō space is the fastest way to become stronger in addition to system tasks. So far, the time after Shimo Shikai has stopped. Although it is still only 813.7 seconds, it can be used twice. Here is the effect of Reiatsu becoming stronger. As for time retrospect, there hasn't been much change. However, Shimo has a hunch in his heart, that ability that has always been dreamed of. Solution: he is not far away. First team, Captain's office. Kyōraku Shunsui, Jashiro Yugataki and Yunohana Retsu waited here quietly. On the other hand, Yamamoto Genryusai sat on the chair with a grim expression. The 11th Division Captain Zaraki provokes Kyōraku Shimo, the 4th Division Deputy Captain without permission. There was a fierce battle between the two, and the entire 11th Squad House was razed to the ground. Old and full of breath, echoed in the captain's office. The nature of this matter is extremely bad, and it has attracted the attention of Central 46. However, considering the particularity of Zaraki Kenpachi, and the fact that both sides did not liberate Zanpakutō, So, Central 46 handed over the power of judgment to me. I want to hear your views on this matter now. Upon hearing this, Kyōraku Shunsui defended. Old man Shan, our Shimo is innocent. He is just performing his duties as deputy captain of the 4th Division as usual. Egg Huali hesitated for a moment and also spoke. Shimo-kun is indeed a passively accepted battle. Hearing what the two said, Yamamoto Genryusai cast his eyes on Jashiro Yukitaki. Teacher, in general, Shimo is indeed innocent. The captain's office fell silent.
After a long time, Yamamoto Genryusai's eyes closed slightly, like a tired old man.
If this is the case, let's judge it like this. When Shimo learned that he had been sentenced to 5 years and not allowed to leave Yulingting, he didn't have much reaction.
This thing is the same as no sentence, no pain or itching, just a verbal warning.
As for Zaraki Kenpachi, he was dispatched to the border of South Rukongai to fight against the imaginary. Similarly, they are not allowed to return to the Yuling court within 5 years.
In Shimo's view, this sentence is more like a reward for Zaraki Kenpachi. Fine, just take a good rest for a while. Shimo lay on his back on the hospital bed, relaxing all over.
5 years later, Kyōraku's home Shimo looked at Kyōraku Shunsui in surprise and said in astonishment. Captain Eisen is missing. Kyōraku Shunsui nodded solemnly and said solemnly.
On the Technology Development Bureau's side, Shiba Eisen's Reiatsu has not been detected at all.
He is either dead or, defect Soul Society, you. After a long time, Yamamoto Genryusai's eyes closed slightly, like a tired old man. If this is the case, let's judge it like this. When Shimo learned that he had been sentenced to 5 years and not allowed to leave Yulingting, he didn't have much reaction.
This thing is the same as no sentence, no pain or itching, just a verbal warning.
As for Zaraki Kenpachi, he was dispatched to the border of South Rukongai to fight against the imaginary. Similarly, they are not allowed to return to the Yuling court within 5 years.
In Shimo's view, this sentence is more like a reward for Zaraki Kenpachi.
Fine, just take a good rest for a while. Shimo lay on his back on the hospital bed, relaxing all over. 5 years later, Kyōraku's home Shimo looked at Kyōraku Shunsui in surprise and said in astonishment. Captain Eisen is missing. Kyōraku Shunsui nodded solemnly and said solemnly. On the Technology Development Bureau's side, Shiba Eisen's Reiatsu has not been detected at all. He is either dead or, defect Soul Society, Chapter 91 Nilu's Superhead Hammer, gradually died. Advertisement. The sudden news made Shimo a little stunned. For Shiba Eisen's disappearance, he was very surprised. Isn't first generation Shiba already dead in him 1,000 miles? Not to mention the corpses, they are already broken into scum. The reason for the disappearance is temporarily unchecked. Kyōraku Shunsui was serious and said seriously, the disappearance of the captain of the Jufon team made old man Shan a little irritable. The recent team is very angry, don't hit the knife. Regarding Kyōraku Shunsui's exhortation, Shimo naturally took it to heart. Before there is a qualitative leap in strength, he will not provoke the irritable and flammable Yamamoto Genryusai. By the way, before Captain Eisen disappeared, was there any unusual incident? Shimo asked. He wanted to use this to judge the whole story. Kyōraku Shunsui shook his head and continued. However, the place where he last appeared was a place in this world called Naruki City. Before this eve, there had been many cases of shinigami being assaulted and killed by unknown subjects in Naruki City. Eisen, too, went to Mamu City to investigate this matter. Having said that, Kyōraku Shunsui paused, staring at Shimo very seriously. According to the observations of the Technology Development Bureau, there has been an astonishing mixed Reiatsu fluctuation in Naruki City. We speculate that Eisen's disappearance may be inseparable from this mixed Reiatsu. Shimo nodded, feeling clear. If you look at it on the timeline, it seems that it is exactly the point in time when the false white event occurred. But considering that Shiba had already died in Shimo's hands, things became a little special. Of course, it does not rule out Aizen's subsequent reproduction of second generation and third generation. It may also be strange creatures such as first generation Shinigami White and second generation Shinigami Black. That's it. Kyōraku Shunsui followed. As for the Jufon team, the deputy captain Matsumoto Rangaku and the third seat Hitsugaya Toshiro will be in charge for the time being. By the way, Hitsugaya Toshiro is also a genius at the Ziyang Spiritual Academy. Shimo, will you feel a little pressure when you meet him? Hearing this, Shimo curled his lips and said helplessly. Stupid Ogi-san, I said I was under pressure, do you believe it? Even if Toshiro has the strongest ice and snow system of Soul Society, Zanpakutō, he has unlimited potential. Well, I will report to the captain that the sentence is over. Kyōraku Shunsui froze for a moment, and couldn't help but recall Shimo's performance. He looked at Shimo's leaving back, and sighed at Hujien's face with an inexplicable smile. Shimo seems to be the head of the Kyōraku family. Obviously, the unscrupulous Kyōraku Shunsui is already thinking about dividing part of his burden. Since a battle between Shimo and Zaraki Kenpachi 5 years ago, the so-called old guys in Kyōraku's family fell into a deep sleep of self-seal again. Their soul life has reached the limit, they can only rely on deep sleep to sustain their lives. As for the next Kyōraku Patriarch, they have no opinion at all. Shimo has proven himself with strength, first team house. When Shimo arrived here, Shojiro Sasaki just walked out of it. He walked in a hurry, carrying various documents like a hill in his hands. Deputy Captain Shimo. Sasaki Deputy Captain. The unusual encounter made Shimo notice that something was wrong. Shojiro Sasaki, it seems that Ping is a bit too busy. Shimo shook his head and put the matter behind temporarily. He went straight into the captain's office in front of him. Shimo, here you are. Yamamoto Genryusai's tone seemed to be a bit more relaxed than usual. Captain, I came this time because of the sentence. Straightforward is the best way to communicate with Yamamoto. Oh, I understand now. Yamamoto Genryusai nodded. The 5-year sentence has expired, and your ban has been lifted. Thank you, Captain. Shimo expressed his thanks. In the previous case verdict, Yamamoto Genryusai was actually a bit biased towards Shimo. For Shinigami, the 5-year ban is not painful at all. What's more, Shimo has never been monitored by a covert mobile unit during these 5 years, let alone a team to report on time. His sentence was at best a verbal warning. However, Zaraki Kenpachi, until now, has not returned from the southern Rukongai border. Advertisement. There was silence in the room. Yamamoto's steady breathing sounded as if he was thinking about something. Shimo was about to ask to leave, but he heard an old voice in the office. Do you know the disappearance of Shiba Eisen, the captain of the juvenile division? Shimo was stunned for a moment, and then said on his forehead. Just learned from Captain Kyōraku. Yamamoto Genryusai pressed his hands on the cane and said slowly. Today, in the 10th Division, only the deputy captain and the 3rd seat are left to support the official business. Gode 13 is in short supply. I want you to be the captain of the 10th Division. Hearing this, Shimo's face was full of words. What's the meaning? Why is it suddenly involved in him, as the captain of the 10th Division? Is this kind of thing too sloppy? The battle between you and Zaraki has explained a lot. At this time, you are fully qualified to serve as the captain of Gode 13. Yamamoto Genryusai expressed his opinion. Shimo was lost in thought. After a moment, he shook his head and declined. Captain, please forgive me for rejecting this matter. The deputy captain I served in the 4th Division can't complete all official duties, let alone the role of captain. In addition, I heard that Hitsugaya Deshiro has a talent for penultimate in 3 seats in the Juban team, and has a sincere attitude towards public affairs and dedicated himself to his duties. This is very clear. To briefly summarize, it is that I am lazy. Don't put these things on my head. Xiaobai next door is very talented and very responsible. The captain can consider him. Hearing that, Yamamoto Genryusai was caught in thinking by accident. In the slightly closed eyes, a look of thought flashed from time to time. After a long time, Yamamoto Genryusai opened the mouth and said. So, the old man understands. Shimo nodded and left the captain's office. Responsibilities, let those who have the ability to continue. Those who can work harder. Next, he has more important things to do. This world. Karakura town. Although he had traveled to this world many times during the ban, it was just a certain interval of time. But after the ban was lifted, it was more free. However, when Shimo came to this world, his brows suddenly squeezed together tightly. Why are there so many mixed Ryotsu in this world? Various imaginary, Shinigami's Ryotsu are mixed together. Under his perception, the air seemed to be filled with the breath of emptiness and Shinigami. It was completely different from when he came to this world some time ago. If you say that Shu and Shinigami are in a balanced hunting state. So now, it seems to be the beginning of the war. There was a lot of virtual smell in the air, and Shinigami seemed to be at a disadvantage. It seems that there is one more thing that needs to be asked. Shimo disaggregated. Lingza flowed under his feet, stepping virtually in the air. The density of souls in this world is far inferior to soul society. Therefore, Shinigami, who is strong at Ryotsu, can walk on the sky by condensing the flow of spirits. Puyuen store. It seemed that Shimo would be here long ago. Urahara Kazuki wore his fisherman hat and waited leisurely on the roof. Yo, Shimo-kun. When seeing Shimo flying by, Urahara Kazuki smiled and said hello. His demeanor was the same as usual, and he didn't seem to worry about anything. Kazuki, long time no see. Shimo stood firmly on the roof of the Puyuen store, opening his mouth. If I remember correctly, it's been less than 3 months since we last met, right?
Urahara Kazuki Demolition Road. It's different. Shimo defended. The ban on my foot has been lifted.
Understand, the first release after serving the sentence. Urahara Kazuki smiled with a joking expression. The relationship between the two has improved a lot in the past few years. Because Shimo often comes to this world to visit Nilu and Shihuan Yoruichi.
Therefore, he and Urahara Kazuki became more and more acquainted.
Advertisement. Actually, I came here this time mainly to ask you something. Shimo opened the door to see and directly stated his purpose. I've been waiting for a long time. Urahara Kazuki has a slightly bowed figure and gestures. Go to the underground space for a detailed discussion. Shimo didn't doubt that he was there. He jumped off the roof and entered the underground space of the Puyuen store very skillfully. When he first entered here, he suddenly heard a cheering sound. Shimo, you are finally here. With joy in Nilu's eyes, she dragged a terrifying green after image straight to Shimo. Boom, a huge sound, resounding in the underground space. Hi, Nilu. When Shimo heard his voice, he subconsciously gathered Ryotsu in front of him to defend himself. Sure enough, the abdomen was hit hard the next moment. Super acceleration, plus super head hammer. Nilu, who has fully recovered her strength, has fully used this set of combos and can already kill Shinigami in a flash.
That is, Shimo, with its own powerful Ryotsu and manipulation of the space, was able to take this intact.
If you change to another captain, you will be half disabled if you don't die. However, although Nilu has regained her strength, due to her own thoughts, she still maintains a small state on weekdays.
In her words, that's how it was when I first met Shimo, I want to keep it.
To this end, Urahara Kazuki specially made a transforming bracelet for it, which can be switched between adult and child at will. Shimo naturally respected her ideas, although Nilu in this form now has a weird feeling in her arms. Shimo, I thought you abandoned me? In Nilu's ignorant eyes, mist had already risen. The little hand gripped Shimo's sleeve tightly and refused to let it go. Shimo smiled bitterly and said, isn't it just 3 months later? In addition, don't you have Dongchaka and Peishui playing with you? Nilu buried her head in Shimo's arms and muttered. I want to be with you, Shimo, when will you take me to where you live? She suddenly raised her head and looked at Shimo with an understanding face.
After hearing this, Shimo pondered it carefully. It's a while.
I need some preparation. Good money. Nilu looked blank, but nodded affirmatively.
Hey, little Shimo is finally willing to come to life.
At the moment Nilu's voice fell, Shihuen Yoruichi's voice came from behind Shimo. Now, why don't you come to your Yoruichi sister in the first place?
Shimo's back tightened, and it seemed something was wrong.
Shihuen Yoruichi hugged him tightly and said softly. The point is, she doesn't seem to be in cat form. Nilu poked her head out of Shimo's arms, her cheeks bulged, and she stared at Shihuen Yoruichi behind Shimo with big eyes. Damn it. The bad woman came to snatch Shimo from Nilu again. Shimo only felt the Neru in his arms, Ryotsu surging, and instantly returned to his adult form. Before he could react, the two of them held his arms tightly one after the other, while looking at each other, as if there was gunpowder burning. Little Nilu, this is not a rob, we're just playing fair. Shihuen Yoruichi looked at Nilu in front of him with a swift expression in his eyes and a smile at the corner of his mouth. Since Ni came to this world, her favorite thing is to tease Nilu's emotions. Every time I look at his nervous look, it is very interesting. Shimo, you must like Nixia. Nilu couldn't say Shihuen Yoruichi, so she could only turn her eyes on Shimo for help. Now, that's not good. Shihuen Yoruichi didn't seem to be too big, and continued. I met little Shimo earlier than you. At this moment, Urahara Kazuki's voice came from the side. Ahem, I think it's better for you to let go of Shimo first. Looking at his appearance, it seems that he is about to breathe. Chapter 93 Sit in the Frosty Sky, Hirenmaru, Advertisement. It didn't take too long to set up a new Kido enchantment. This is also inseparable from Shimo Kido's attainments. Knock off. The Ryotsu released by Shimo's fingertips gradually dissipated, and above the underground space, there are constantly Kido mantras, seeping through the entire space. With this enchantment, you can avoid investigating spiritual equipment. Urahara Kazuki thank you Shimo-kun for that. Shimo waved, and said, we can now be a grasshopper on a rope. You are fascinated by Soul Society, and I can't run away. At that time, it is very likely that I will face the terrifying old man. Urahara Kazuki is silent. He always feels that Shimo has misunderstood something. Why do we have to confront the scary old man in your mouth? What dangerous things do you usually think about? This terrifying old man is Yamamoto Genryusai, right? It's definitely him. Shimo-kun, not to Urahara Kazuki wanted to say something, but saw Shimo walking towards Shiba Isshin. Oh, I hope Shimo-kun's words are just a joke. Shiba Isshin saw Shimo coming and asked. Anything else to tell? Shimo's forehead asked, what about the Jufon team? It's easy for you to shake your hand, throwing a mess on the Jufon team. Captain Yamamoto has already considered letting me be the captain of the juvenile team. Hearing this, Shiba Isshin was silent, his face clearly showing a tendency to hold back a smile. Shimo looked at this guy blankly. Wow, haha, the captain's idea, I have to say, it is still very big picture. Although it's not long to get along with each other, Shiba Isshin is a very clever existence. He had already realized that Shimo and him were the same kind of people. If it were not for unnecessary responsibilities, neither of them would be willing to bear. Therefore, Shimo must refuse the position of captain of the 10th division. Noting that Shimo's eyes are getting worse, Shiba Isshin finally suppressed his smile. Ahem. Actually Hitsugaya is a good candidate, as for Rangaku. Shiba Isshin frowned when he thought of his deputy captain. For her, forget it. as unreliable as me. Hearing this, Shimo gave him a disdainful look. Fortunately, after all, there is a bit of self-knowledge. As the saying goes, if the smell is similar, it is called a confidant. Shiba Eisen can mix with Kyōraku Shunsui, obviously they're the same. The affairs of the 8th Division are handled by Aizen and Ao. For the team's affairs, there is a third seat, Toshiro, to solve the problem. Before Hitsugaya Toshiro entered the Juban team, it was the captain and the deputy captain pushing back and forth. All in all, it's all a bunch of lazy people. Shimo is very contemptuous of this. However, he neglected himself indirectly. It seems that the affairs that should be handled by the deputy captain of the 4th Division are also handed over to Katetsu Izan in the third seat. I see. At that time, I will go to the Jufon team. Shimo nodded and said, by the way, there is one more thing. Shiba Eisen's expression suddenly became very serious. Please don't tell the Shiba people about my life in the world, please. Kaien and Kong may be able to stabilize their minds, but Yan's curse is not necessarily the case. He seems to be very clear about the character of his junior. Rock scolds more than Rufy, and has an impetuous character. I am worried that after he knows this, he will come to this world without authorization. Shimo expressed his understanding of Shiba Eisen's worries. Shiba's house has fallen, and with his disappearance, it will inevitably drop another level. If it weren't for the existence of Shiba Kaien, the Shiba family at this time is estimated to have been removed from the nobility. The 5 nobles in the Soul Society are not just a symbol of privilege. More, it is their own responsibilities. For example, the Great Spirit Book Corridor and Image Hall held by the Suniyashiro family, the artifacts and spirit instruments of the Shihuan family, the maintenance of the Kuchiki family and the rules of the Soul Society, the special Kido skills of the Shiba family, and the flower crane leading to the Spirit King Palace Cannon, etc. Because of this, Shiba Eisen worried about his people. Shimo advised. Don't worry about the empty cranes, there will be no danger if I am here. Advertisement, Soul Society is safer than the present world. Shiba Eisen is here. Shimo comforted Nilu, then opened the door to go back to Soul Society. Although I don't really want to manage it, it's Shiba Eisen's commission. It's better to be more careful. Soul Society. The 10th Division team house. After coming out of Kyōraku's house, Shimo went straight to the Juban team building. As a senior, he felt that he needed to test Hitsugaya Dashiro's current level of strength. Of course, it's more of his own bad taste. As the new genius of the Spiritual Arts Academy after him, he graduated from it at a young age. After Shimo, another genius who was respected by the Spiritual Academy. After joining the squad, in a short period of time, he successfully served as the third seat of the squad, and was diligent and squeezed by his captain and deputy captain. The poor baby didn't realize that he had entered the den of thieves. Perhaps, only after he took up the post of captain, he would be able to comprehend it. The European-style buildings are characteristic of the Jufon team house. Shimo has come here a handful of times, but he doesn't get lost. The icy Ryotsu can easily be known. However, Matsumoto Rangaku doesn't seem to be in the team house. If nothing else, he should go to the izakaya to drink. Deputy Captain Shimo. The members of the juvenile division guarding at the gate seemed to be familiar with Shimo's appearance. When he saw Shimo coming, his expression gradually became excited. I'm here to visit the 3 seats of Mesugaya. Shimo smiles and has a peaceful attitude. Please wait a moment, I will report now. The guards rushed into the team building, a little flustered. Soon, he ran back, and behind him was a short figure. Silver white hair, turquoise eyes, and the cold Ryotsu have fully demonstrated his identity. The 10th Division has 3 seats, Hitsugaya Toshiro. One of the most talented shinigami in Soul Society. Deputy Captain Shimo. Do you have official duties when you come to the 10th Division? At this time, Hitsugaya Toshiro's expression looked a little indifferent, with his brows fringed together. Perhaps it was the current personality that was influenced by his own Zanpakutō. Shimo didn't take it seriously. In his opinion, Hitsugaya Toshiro is really his junior. Whether he was admitted to the hospital or the team, he was a step slower. Hitsugaya has 3 seats. Shimo greeted him first, and then directly stated his purpose. Because of the disappearance of Captain Shiba. Therefore, as the captain of Yamamoto, I have no intention of being the captain of the juvenile team. Hitsugaya Toshiro's eyebrows became tighter, and he asked. What does this have to do with me? Shimo raised his mouth and smiled. Because of my personality and other issues, I declined the appointment of the captain. I recommended you to Captain Yamamoto. Hearing that, Hitsugaya Dongshalang's head tilted, with a look of surprise. Why? Shimo explained. My relationship with your Shiba captain, do you know it? Hitsugaya Toshiro nodded subconsciously. In my spare time, he and I discussed the issue of the next captain of the 10th Division. He once heard that you were a very good successor. He is calm, full of responsibility, and very serious in doing things.
Shimo praised him and threw it up, but Hitsugaya was a bit disgusting.
He held up his fist, rebuked his fluctuating emotions, and continued to maintain a cold look to prevent the small image from collapsing. But the sudden turn made Hitsugaya Toshiro stunned for a moment. He subconsciously asked, But what Shimo's smile became a little dangerous. I need to test your level of strength first. See if you can qualify for the post of captain. A hint of urgency flashed in Hitsugaya Dashiro's eyes. He was still yearning for the position of captain. Where to check? Shimo saw the eagerness in his heart, but it didn't break. For the current Hitsugaya Dashiro, he didn't take it seriously. He who hasn't learned a complete solution is at most a general level. Compared to Shimo Kenpachi, they are all inferior, let alone Shimo.
Go to Rukongai. I know a suitable place. Advertisement. Hitsugaya Toshiro didn't have any doubts, and left the juvenile team directly with Shimo.
West Rukongai, 3 blocks north end, Laifu Mountain. For West Rukongai, Hitsugaya Dashiro is quite familiar. Seeking flowers after all, he was born in the first neighborhood, Junranin district. Looking at the beautiful scenery around, a look of intolerance appeared on Hitsugaya Dashiro's face. Is it a pity to destroy such a good environment? Shimo glanced at him unexpectedly, then smiled. Do not worry. With your strength, it is almost impossible to cause great damage under my hands. Upon hearing this, a trace of anger emerged in Hitsugaya Dashiro's heart. When he enrolled in the Spiritual Arts Academy, he always heard of the name Kyōraku Shimo. In the Spiritual Academy, people often compare him with Shimo. This is where he often gets bored. Why should a person he has never seen before compare with each other?
Besides, is the so-called Shimo really such a genius?
The arrogance of young people was aroused by comparisons. Therefore, when facing Shimo, it is inevitable to be a little more indifferent than others. At this time, Shimo's words seemed to reignite the anger in his heart. The chill radiated from him. SP, don't keep your hands. Shimo doesn't even have the desire to pull out Zanpakutō, just do it all. The calm look in Hitsugaya Dashiro's eyes turned into contempt and disdain. Humph. He didn't liberate Zanpakutō directly, but directly used Shunpo and rushed towards Shimo. After images, left in the clearing. The basic skills are relatively solid. Ha, 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 the swift Zanpakutō stabs, slashes, and launches towards Shimo. I advise you to liberate Zanpakutō. Shimo attacked his decapitation with a light look on his face, avoiding it completely. Hitsugaya Dashiro gritted his teeth. A sense of unwillingness and frustration emerged in his heart. Shimo didn't even pull out Zanpakutō. Just relying on Shunpo made all his attacks useless. Sit on a dry frost day. Hiranmaru. With a low growl, the surrounding temperature suddenly dropped to freezing point. The air was gradually filled with tiny ice crystals, and the sky was instantly darkened. Soul Society is the strongest ice and snow department. Zanpakutō, Hiranmaru. The sealed state Zanpakutō in Hitsugaya Dashiro's hand has an iron chain at the end of the knife handle, and a crescent-shaped blade at the end of the chain, like the tail of an ice dragon. Flock of birds icicles. Hitsugaya Dashiro used Hiranmaru in his hands, and the surge of Ryotsu turned into ice bombs like flying birds, flying towards Shimo in groups. There was a violent breaking sound in the air, the 39-round gate fan of paving the road. Shimo doesn't move, his index finger points out. The circular protective cover made of Ryotsu appeared in front of him suddenly. Jingle bells. The crisp sound of collision sounded on the round gate fan. Hitsugaya Dashiro gritted his teeth and his face was full of unwillingness. The ice dragon spins the tail, but seeing Hiranmaru in his hand slashing by, Ryotsu turned into a huge ice dragon, roaring in the sky. There is no mood swing in the blood-red dragon eyes. With the waving of Hiranmaru, the ice dragon roared and rushed towards Shimo. The momentum is mighty, everything around is freezing. The waterfall in the distance turned into icicles and pestle because of the falling temperature. That's the truth. A smile appeared on Shimo's face, his index finger pointed out, and he whispered. Hadoji Juju. 5 swirling dragons of destruction. The moment Hitsugaya Dashiro heard this, a look of horror suddenly appeared on his face, and his pupils were shrinking. Abandon the chanted number 99 Hado. With Shimo as the center, the terrifying Ryotsu rises up, like the sky collapses and the world collapses. In Hitsugaya Dashiro's eyes, Shimo at this time is like a man who created the doomsday, and his whole body has a trembling feeling of oppression on the same level. Unlike the ice dragon, the Ryotsu dragon of 5 swirling dragons of destruction gives people a sense of horror and oppression. More importantly, the ice dragon of Hitsugaya Dashiro is much smaller than the dragon of Ryotsu. The two are placed together and compared, it is like an adult and a baby, completely disproportionate. The dragon of Ryotsu, which is hundreds of meters away, surrounds Shimo and makes a terrifying roar. Shimo's fingertips pressed gently in the air, and the dragon of Ryotsu instantly swallowed the ice dragon in the air. Boom, the violent Ryotsu impact burst open, and countless ice chips splashed. The result of the battle is obviously self-evident, 0. Chapter 94 The Youngest Captain, this world is in chaos. Advertisement, impossible. The scene before him caused great trauma to Hitsugaya Dashiro's young mind. He condensed his whole body Ryotsu, the strongest blow he released. The roaring ice dragon should have gone forward and fearless. However, Shimo abandons the chant number 99 Hado, with 5 dragons and bricks. With one move, the entire ice dragon was directly turned into countless ice chips and then dissipated in the world. As Shimo said at the beginning, the surrounding environment did not appear to be destroyed on a large scale. The most tragic scene is nothing more than ice piercing into the ground, resulting in small potholes. How can the gap between this be so big? Hitsugaya Deshiro is obviously not able to easily accept the reality in front of him. His talent for doing himself is very clear, and the Ryotsu radiated unconsciously can affect the people around him. What's more, when he has practiced for a certain period of time, he has unearthed his own potential. At the very beginning, Hitsugaya Deshiro thought that Shimo, the genius of the previous session. In terms of talent, it's nothing more than on par with him at best. But when Shimo's record kept coming, Hitsugaya Deshiro was silent. Joined the 4th Division, launched the victory battle, and successfully promoted to the post of deputy captain. Go to Hueco Mundo, and bring back Asido, the former deputy captain of the 11th Division, and minimize the casualties of the team. At this time, Hitsugaya Deshiro may still have a little hope. If you practice hard by yourself, you may be able to catch up with Shimo in the future. However, after his battle with Zaraki Kenpachi, his record came as August 13th.
Hitsugaya Deshiro was silent. He began to doubt his previous thoughts.
Maybe, there are some outsiders and there are outsiders. The physique of Shinigami and Shinigami cannot be compared. How to say? Shimo rubbed his nose, a trace of apology appeared on his face, he seemed to be a little bit cruel, and hit Hitsugaya Deshiro's confidence. Actually, you are also very strong, otherwise I would not recommend you to Captain Yamamoto. Hitsugaya Deshiro's face was gloomy, and he seemed to be thinking about something. My strength has not been fully implemented yet, the chill was condensed in him. The density of Lingza in the surrounding air seems to have changed under the influence of its Ryotsu. Shimo raised his brows lightly, and realized this guy's life. Snapped. I advise you, it is better not to explain. Hitsugaya Deshiro's expression is wrong. Ryotsu is also frozen at the current level. He somewhat looked at the 2 fingers between his eyebrows. With his full concentration on Shimo, he was completely unaware of the timing and trajectory of Shimo's launch of Shunpo. Forgive me, stupid white. A nasty thought came into Shimo's mind. There is no fluctuation in his expression, like a pool of stagnant water. This is the last time. Aware of the high intensity of Ryotsu gathered between his eyebrows, Hitsugaya Deshiro subconsciously swallowed a mouthful of water. Deputy Captain Shimo, I think the outcome of the battle can be negotiated. Although he didn't understand what Shimo said and what happened just now. But for the sake of your own safety, it is better to admit defeat decisively. Hearing this, Shimo directly released the fingers that pressed his forehead. Now, you said it would be fine, but to my surprise, you actually already know about it. Very capable. Shimo rubbed the white hair unceremoniously, completely ignoring the change in Hitsugaya Deshiro's face. For the time being, it is not yet possible to fully master. A trace of anger appeared on Hitsugaya Deshiro's face. Can you take your hands off my head? Shimo followed Chianpai twice and laughed. Spread. Don't care too much, I have given you the job of captain. On Hitsugaya Deshiro's forehead, there are vaguely blue veins beating. Obviously you don't want to take over, Shimo waved, okay, don't care about these details. Your strength has passed my test. At that time, it is enough to apply directly to Captain Yamamoto. Hitsugaya Deshiro's expression returned to the cold. Advertisement, I see. After the conversation, Shimo left in a cool manner. Stay alone. Hitsugaya Deshiro stops and thinks he looked at Shimo's leaving back, his eyes flickering. He should know something. The captain may be alive, but for some reason he couldn't return to Soul Society. Hitsugaya Deshiro muttered to himself in a voice that only he could hear. He heard some clues from Shimo's performance just now. For the former captain, Shiba Eisen, Hitsugaya Deshiro is grateful since he entered the 10th Division. Shiba Eisen took good care of him and taught him how to handle various official duties while teaching spiritual practice. As for his disappearance, Hitsugaya Deshiro was naturally one of the people most concerned about. It was thought that Shiba Eisen had already died because of the battle. But the time comes and shows, but it's delivering a message. The captain is definitely not dead. Hitsugaya Deshiro's eyes flickered, gradually strengthening the idea. Realizing this, he also felt a little grateful for Shimo. Although the personality is very bad, but the essence is still good. After tidying up Liefushan after the battle, Hitsugaya Deshiro returned to the Juban team alone. But what puzzles him is that the players on the road always look at him with a strange look. This made Hitsugaya Deshiro, who was already very thin, even more unacceptable. He quickened his pace, and took the time to return to the 10th Division team house. 3 seats in Hitsugaya. When the guards of the guardhouse saw Hitsugaya Deshiro returning, they hurriedly gave salutes. But the next moment, their faces were flushed. Hitsugaya Deshiro glanced at the two indifferently, with the same expression as Shinigami on the way back. You too. Why do you make this expression? He finally couldn't restrain his inner curiosity, so he asked. Yo, Xiaobai. At this moment, a familiar voice came from behind Hitsugaya Deshiro. Hitsugaya Toshiro recognized the owner of this voice for the first time. Matsumoto of damn it. He suddenly turned around and said loudly, "Please pay attention to your name. Call me Hitsugaya 3 seats." Hitsugaya Toshiro seems to be very ashamed of the name Xiaobai. Matsumoto Rangaku was full of alcohol and looked at Hitsugaya Toshiro blankly.
Puff ha ha ha, Xiaobai, is this a new look? Unexpectedly, you would actually change your look.
Matsumoto Rangaku didn't have so much scruples. She walked over and fiddled with Hitsugaya Toshiro's hair.
Not bad. Which master's work? At this time, Hitsugaya Toshiro finally realized that something was wrong.
He condenses an ice mirror in front of him with his backhand. In the ice mirror, the silver-haired shape of the iceberg that was originally neat and finely fragmented, but it seemed to have been played with by a big hand. The messy hairstyle is like a black nest on a dead tree after the rain. The image completely collapsed. Kyōraku Shimo. The voice of grief and indignation passed a long distance at the entrance of the 10th Division team house. Accompanied by the hearty laughter of Matsumoto Rangaku. Shimo, who wanders in the 4th Division, naturally doesn't care about these details. His casual behavior is only to satisfy his own evil taste. Lingza sticks to his hands, oppresses his hair, and changes his hairstyle.
This kind of operation, Shimo is also inspired by the operation of a certain hair stylist.
The effect is surprisingly good. 3 days later, Hitsugaya Toshiro submitted an application for the captain upward. Taking into account the special circumstances of the Jufon team, Yamamoto Motonujai held a captain meeting to discuss the matter. However, because Unohana Retsu has to prepare for the tradition of each month in the 4th Division, the flower arrangement game. So I gave Shimo the task of meeting first team, the court. The captains gathered here, waiting boredly for the start of the meeting. But to Shimo's surprise, Zaraki Kenpachi had already returned from the Rukongai border. Although there are many bandages wrapped around her body, she is still full of energy and looks very energetic. When he saw Shimo for the first time, a grinning expression appeared on his face. Advertisement, saw. Shimo, let's fight again. Shimo directly refused. Impossible, don't even think about it. Hey. Zaraki Kenpachi's expression was wrong. Shimo's answer was a little bit beyond his expectation. Fighting for this kind of thing, you'd better go find another captain. Such as Da Bai, or Captain Kyōraku. Shimo's words immediately caused dissatisfaction among the other two. Hello, Shimo. Fighting this kind of thing, don't push on the old man. Kyōraku Shunsui's face was bitter. I recently encountered a bottleneck in my creation, and my hair fell out in a handful. Byakuya Kuchiki did not respond outside, he still keeps himself cold. Image is extremely important to the Kuchiki family, one of the 4 nobles. Especially when Kuchiki is self-conscious, as the head of the Kuchiki family. Where? I can't experience the horrible act of fighting happily. Zaraki Kenpachi said in a low voice. Hearing this, Shimo's eyes suddenly widened, his expression a little surprised. What did I hear? Zaraki Kenpachi, a single-celled creature, can actually say such things. The changes in this world seem to be beyond my imagination. At this moment, Hitsugaya Toshiro also came from outside. The first time he came in, he found Shimo facing Zaraki Kenpachi. His expression changed from calmness to resentment. Damn it guy. No recognition result, Hitsugaya Toshiro said in a very small voice as he passed by Shimo. Shimo responded with a smile, as if I didn't know anything. This made Hitsugaya Toshiro even more annoyed. However, there is no way to get Shimo. Can't beat straight. After the previous battle, Hitsugaya Toshiro has realized one thing. The gap between himself and Shimo can no longer be made up with hard work. Hiranmaru, after Shikai, was still unable to cause damage to Shimo. When thinking of Hado, the 99 Hado that gave people a sense of breath, a sense of helplessness arose in Hitsugaya Toshiro's heart. The captain's meeting soon began. The atmosphere was unexpectedly solemn. Shimo frowned slightly, realizing something was wrong. In this captain meeting, it seems that the level of 0.0 is not just because of the 10th Division captain. In view of the disappearance of Shiba Ishin, the former captain of the Juvenile Division, Soul Society has temporarily classified this as death.
In this regard, the position of captain of the 10th Division has also appeared vacant.
The old and steady voice of Yamamoto Genryusai sounded in the court. Yesterday, Hitsugaya Toshiro submitted the captain application form to me. Do you have any comments on this? Calm gaze, sweeping across the court. Silence. In response to Yamamoto Genryusai's words, there was only silence. However, the silence at this time represents a more default attitude. In this case, Hitsugaya Toshiro will take over as the captain of the Jufon. 1. The expression on Yamamoto Genryusai's face is slightly relaxed. The youngest captain in Soul Society, I hope you can make better use of your talents. Yamamoto Genryusai still values Hitsugaya Toshiro. Zanpakutō, Hiranmaru, the strongest ice snow system in Soul Society, corresponds to his Ryujin Jaka. Logically speaking, the two are essentially the same in Qian 9. As for whether Hitsugaya Toshiro can reach his height in the future, I have to say something else. I can only say that there is this possibility, it just takes time to grind. This matter is over, and there is another matter that needs to be resolved. Yamamoto Genryusai's tone became a little serious, and at the same time, the expressions of everyone changed a little.
He looked around the crowd and continued. In this world, Shinigami's death occurred in many cities. The void in Hueco Mundo was agitated again. Chapter 95 Assignment of Tasks, Aizen's Kindness.
Advertisement falsehood. Everyone's expressions became serious. It should be the responsibility of the 13th Squad to purify the emptiness and the soul in this world. Even if there are occasional unresolved existences, it is just to mobilize other team members or seat officials. But now I actually took this matter to the captain's meeting and said, the seriousness of the incident is beyond their imagination. And the situation is explained by Kuretsuchi Mayuri, the captain of the 12th Division. Yamamoto Genryusai dropped a word and fell into calm. I think you guys still haven't taken this matter to heart, right?
Kuretsuchi Mayuri gave a weird laugh, his slender fingers wiggling in the air.
The seriousness of the matter is far beyond your imagination. According to the statistics of the technical staff of the Rainbow Surveying and Research Division, Shinigami in 48 cities has been killed. And this happened only overnight. Hearing that, everyone's faces were shocked. The Manos Grande are rushing into the world like crazy, constantly using their own advantages to attack Shinigami stationed everywhere. What's even more frightening is that the Lingbo Measurement Research Division's spiritual tool detection can no longer accurately capture the location of the Manos Grandes. In addition to a small number of Ajukas, there are more Jillian and various forms of virtuality. Similar to the special kind of phantoms like dry metastasia, there have been more than one. Kuretsuchi Mayuri's expression gradually became crazy, with a jealous expression on his face. For this, I have collected a lot of fiction worth studying. When talking about Stasia, he also looked specifically at Shimo. Metastasia's abilities and nature were revealed to him by Shimo. Before that, Hunyuli had never heard of such a virtual name, ability. Oh, really a serious disaster. Kyōraku Shunsui's voice is lazy, but his expression gradually becomes serious. As one of the 14 oldest captains, a similar chaos happened in Soul Society's history. But the situation is far from what it is now, old man Sean. Do you mean we need to send elite troops to this world? Everyone once again focused their attention on Yamamoto Genryusei. Captain Kyōraku, please wait for me to finish. Kuretsuchi Mayuri at this time has a steady tone and is in a stable state. Sorry, Captain Kuretsuchi Mayuri. Kyōraku Shunsui nodded and apologized. Kuretsuchi Mayuri continues his story, although it is not clear what happened. But what is certain is that certain changes have taken place in these voids. In other words, it should be about Ryatsu evades the tracking of the psychic tool and hides himself. Although the technique is very clumsy, it looks like a child's trick. Kuretsuchi Mayuri stretched his hands and drew a huge circle in the air. But there are so many falsehoods to understand this technique. No one can guess the psychology of a mad scientist. A look of impatience appeared on Shimo's face. Kuretsuchi Mayuri, stop talking nonsense. Go straight to the subject. Facing his reprimand, Kuretsuchi Mayuri didn't seem to care at all. Hey, Shimo. Your character is as impatient as ever. Shimo raised his eyes and said in a helpless tone. If you have been researching with someone like you for a long time, you will get something wrong. I've performed well. When Kuretsuchi Mayuri is studying, there are often some problems. Although Shimo had warned him many times, this guy still went his own way. For this reason, Shimo has messed up his research more than once. All in all, the grievances between the two of them are really endless for a while. It is estimated that it will take several years to develop a new Ryatsu detector. During this period, there are only two ways to reduce losses. Kuretsuchi Mayuri stretched out two pale fingers, as if they were smeared with some kind of medicine. The first is for Shinigami, who is the deputy captain or higher, to perform Ryatsu perception. The second is to send 10 times Shinigami, who were stationed in the past, to purify the present city. That's the specific plan. How to allocate it is up to the captains to decide. As soon as he finished speaking, Yamamoto Genryusai, who was sitting motionless, continued to speak. Advertisement. According to the seriousness of the situation, Shojiro and I conducted an analysis. In order to minimize the losses, it was decided to proceed with the two plans at the same time. After all, Shojiro Sasaki next to him stepped forward and explained in detail. The 13th Division is still responsible for the task of purification in the world. The 3rd, 4th, 5th, and 11th squads all need to arrange players for support. At the same time, the covert mobile unit is investigating the cause of the false change. After listening, the eyes of Shinigami all showed different thoughts. They didn't seem to disagree with Yamamoto's arrangement. However, this time the suppression of the false chaos requires Shinigami, who is above the deputy captain, to be stationed in this world. 5 of the deputy captains are each responsible for the garrison in the 2 cities. If necessary, you can apply for liberation permission from Yulingting. And Captain Gode 13, it is strictly forbidden to leave the Yulingting at will during the suppression of the false chaos. Shojiro Sasaki looked around the crowd and ended his order.
Shimo's eyes flicker. Is the situation so severe?
In his memory, this world has always been in a relatively stable state. But at the moment there is a situation of chaos. In order to suppress the chaos, Yulingting had to send a new shinigami force to the world. However, this may be something that Yamamoto Genryusei noticed. As a result, the captain was ordered to strictly prohibit leaving Yulingting at will. It is a pity that the departure of the captain has no effect on the planners of the chaos. In the case of all Kyoka Suigetsu, Shimo's departure is the truly empty moment of Yulingting.
However, Shimo still supports some parts of Aizen's plan.
For example, Homicide Central 46. The so-called sages are nothing more than a group of frogs greedy for power. As for Shinigami, the current world responsible for suppressing the false chaos. Yamamoto Motoyanagi said again, the 4th Division Deputy Captain, Kyōraku Shimo is in charge. Hearing this, Shimo's calm expression froze suddenly. Questions appeared on his face. Why am I shot while lying down? Captain Yamamoto, I don't understand this. Shimo tried to save his decision. Don't worry, the old man will arrange an assistant for you. Considering your strength, the city you need to be responsible for is also the city with the most turmoil. I hope you are ready. Yamamoto Genryusei seems to have made up his mind to let Shimo take care of this. Hearing this, Shimo sighed and said helplessly, I said it's okay if I'm not prepared? Yamamoto Genryusei set his sights on Shiba Kaien, completely ignoring Shimo's words. After several interviews, he seems to have understood part of Shimo's character. Although he has great talent and great potential, he has a lazy personality. According to the intelligence of the team members of the 1st Division, in the 4th Division, many of the tasks of the deputy captain were handled by Katetsu Izan. Simply, it would be best to force the assignment to him directly. Can't come to the meeting because of Jashiro Yukitaki's body. So for the time being, Shiba Kaien will come to replace him. Shiba Kaien, deputy captain of the 13th Division, you are the second person in charge of suppressing false chaos. Yes. Unlike Shimo, Shiba Kaien has always been extremely obedient to orders from superiors. Yamamoto also appreciates this Shinigami team player the most. What's more, Shiba Kaien's talent is very good among Shinigami. It should be said that Shiba's talents can be regarded as outstanding existence in the overall Shinigami. This has a great relationship with the blood of his family. Yamamoto Genryusei looked around the crowd, his expression becoming more serious. Do you have any objections to the arrangement of the old man? Although this is an inquiry, but the tone seems to say, who dares to have any questions, please fight to the death with the old man. Shimo has no interest in fighting against Shinigami, the strongest soul society. With that kind of strength, it's better to kill 2 falsehoods. This concludes the meeting. But when the captain left one after another, Shojiro Sasaki suddenly found Shimo. Deputy Captain Shimo, please wait for a moment. Shimo was about to step out of the team house, but suddenly stopped. Does the captain still have any requests from the old man? Advertisement. When he came, Shimo sighed and lamented that life is not easy. I want to be a mighty fish in peace, but I'm always disturbed. It's not. A smile appeared on Shojiro Sasaki's face. Captain, he just wanted to remind you. The situation of this chaos is severe, please be careful. Shimo frowned slightly, hesitated, then said, thanks a lot. I will pay attention. The reminder of Shojiro Sasaki made Shimo more mindful. The chaos in this world may be more serious than he imagined. Otherwise, Yamamoto will never deliberately warn himself. At the same time, there is one more thing that needs attention. Yamamoto Genryusei seems to be paying more and more attention to himself. When did it start? Hueco Mundo rescued that operation too. Shimo said to himself, and Kyōraku Shunsui's voice came from behind him. Accompanying them are Byakuya Kuchiki and Shattered Bee. Shimo, be careful. The blood of the Kyōraku family is still waiting for you to pass on. Byakuya Kuchiki is also here to tell Shimo to be safe. As one of his few friends, Shimo's weight in his heart is also very heavy. After the two left, Broken Bee walked to Shimo. Then, I will investigate the cause of the chaos as soon as possible. The Broken Bee, who had always been calm and taciturn, seemed a little unusual at this time. The current Broken Bee has short hair with bangs, the hairstyle is an Ekoto policeman, and the ring snake braid is dressed in a black death tyrant lining. The Captain Howery on the outside is draped in the style of a vest. Unlike the icy appearance of the past, Broken Bee's cheeks are a little red, and he seems a little stuttered when speaking. You must be careful. What I want to say, Broken Bee has already said. When he was about to leave, Shimo suddenly stretched out his hand to press his head and said softly. You too. Feeling the temperature passing on Shimo's palm, Broken Bee's face turned red. Yes. I see. She broke free of Shimo's handhaul, cast Shunpo and disappeared into the first team house. Tisk tisk, the Broken Bee now is much cuter than before. Shimo sighed. What an enviable friendship. A gentle voice sounded behind Shimo. Shimo turned around, and the calm eyes and the generous smile caught his eyes. Shimo-kun. Aizen Kuyusuke smiled and looked at Shimo and said hello. Captain Aizen. A puzzled look appeared on Shimo's face. Is there something to call me? Aizen kept smiling. No strange emotions could be seen in the brown pupils. The chaos in this world is extremely serious. After going to this world, you must be careful. Judging from Aizen's current attitude, it fully reflects the character of his good old man. If you change to another person, you may not be too concerned. But Shimo knows that the root of all this still comes from the person in front of him. The master of Hueco Mundo, Aizen. Thank you Captain Aizen for your kindness. Shimo naturally wouldn't expose flaws in front of him and still maintained his normal state. I will pay attention. After Aizen left, Shimo also returned to the 4th Division. As the only medical rescue team in Yulingting, the 4th Division has a total of 14 squads. The number of team members is also extremely impressive. However, this time I went to this world, I brought up to 2 teams of team members. As for the others, they also need to be responsible for the entire Yulingting's medical system. Kashima Yusuke, you are in charge of the 4th Division for this current support operation. Shimo gave the order. Our destination. For this world, Karakura Town.